up, y'all? Kofi Kingston here, and I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks, depending on what that drink is, preferably non-alcoholic, you know?
How's it going? Healthy Warrior Damon.
Soda.
I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Maple syrup.
Fella.
I would never have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Welcome to Wrestling on the Rocks. Welcome to the dive bar of the IWC. I'm at Ref Marsh. We are at WOTR, the show. This is the show where every show is our first show. Without a producer, it makes it even more so. There's even more margin for error. Guys, with me today, I have Bishop from Terrible Wrestling Takes to come spew out all of his terrible wrestling takes. Say hello, Bishop.
What's up? What's up? Thank you for having me back. I am Bishop from the Terrible Wrestling Takes podcast, twtakes.com for all audio platforms. Just went live on Amazon Music today, only because I didn't know I had to put it up there. But shit, now I have a feed on Amazon Music. That's dope. twtakes.com/TWTs. Dope merch. Marsh is a patron of the site and can vouch that I have the lowest prices, fastest shipping merch. Other than that, I'm here to have some fun. It's been a while, brother. Since before the watch along, I couldn't tell you the last time we did an episode together, so I'm super excited to be back.
I don't think you've been on since episode 1, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
And with us today for the first time, debuting on episode 1 of all episodes to debut on. First time drinker. We got the sports beard. Say hello, man.
Hey, how's it going? Sports Beard out of Anchorage, Alaska. Follow me at Twitter at _beard/sports. And check out my YouTube page, The Sports Beard.
I believe it's at beard_sports.
Yep.
The way you did it, I don't even think I could have tagged you the way you did it. You put a slash after the ad. It was difficult.
No, it's at beard_sports. Yeah. I should have a graphic.
Yeah, if we had a producer today, we would have splashed it on the screen here. But
no worries.
We're a little producer-less. It's a little tough goings.
Happy to be here.
Man, we're really happy to have you on. It was exciting to have you on. Let's see. I've got in the chat Just in Time already says, "Oh, it's time." Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Just in Time, coming through the dive bar.
Shouts to Just in Time 211. He's
the curator of our side of the IWC. So, the IWC, Jeremiah, Mr. Sports Beard, is the internet wrestling community. Have you heard of it? Talked about that way yet?
No. You just told me.
So, Bishop, Sports Beard is back new into the fandom. He only really started watching again this past few months or so, right?
Yeah. My boy Pat McAfee got me back into it, so
nice.
Yeah. I just I just love his enthusiasm and love for the sport, and I was like, yeah, man, why did I stop watching this? So it's great.
I tell you what, to me, he's a fucking 2-time Hall of Famer already. His matches in NXT were just to die for, and his ability to be on commentary, enjoy it as a fan, be over the top, but not feel over the top is fucking impeccable. I've called him a 2-time Hall of Famer from the beginning. He's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. He's so good. He's naturally just gifted.
Have you gotten the chance to see McAfee's wrestling match?
I have not seen the match. I've seen the interaction that him and Adam Cole had on his show.
That was good.
Which I think helped kind of, like, I know they were spinning a story off of it, but I have not seen the match that he had with Adam Cole. I know that I'll have to go back and I think all that stuff is available on Peacock.
It's on Peacock.
Correct?
It is. It is. I'll give you a list of a couple episodes to check out and even some timestamps, because there's a couple spots before the match happens that McAfee just comes out to do like commentary during an Adam Cole match, and it's incredible. And it leads up to it so well, and the match super delivered. So I'll send you some of the Pat McAfee NXT care package notes. So you can check it out.
Cool, man. I look forward to it.
So Bishop, what that means is that we get some fresh eyes on a product that we like to rip apart, and so we get a little bit more of that lighthearted fandom back into the conversation, which we die for. We love it. But
yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
No, it just because you mentioned the IWC, but I don't know if you're about to put over our side of the IWC, because even though we do like to shit on the product a bit, we also like to keep it honest, and we like to keep it accountable.
Positive.
We like to keep accountability positive. Yeah, honest, positive, and accountability. So if you say something sucks, it either comes with, well, let's see if there's a new direction, or let's see how this builds going forward. And we usually have opposing views. That's the whole point of my show, Terrible Wrestling Takes Podcast, See What Takes Podcast on all platforms, is that to have the discussion. And that's why me and you got along so good. So Jeremiah, Mr. Sports Beard, my friend, welcome to our side of the IWC, where it's about the conversation.
Yeah. So the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community at large, is typically, if you've delved much into the wrestling Twitter sphere, it's pretty vicious and viral. And I don't mean viral as in popular. I mean viral as in like a virus. It can be really negative, and they can beat on each other. Just in time here, I call him the curator and the Don of our side of the IWC. He's managed to just find a mass amount of kind of, I say, like-hearted wrestling fans, not like-minded, because we all disagree on so much, but we all go into it knowing we're talking about wrestling, and that's a fun thing to talk about to begin with. So when we disagree, there's no reason for cheap shots or animosity towards each other, which is actually, you think this is crazy, I'm sure. That's actually a problem on Twitter. That's not the norm.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we'll have any disagreements, because I love to hear other people's perspectives, and I think everybody brings something different to the table. And for me, I enjoyed wrestling back in the 90s when Stone Cold, because I had a prick for a boss, and here's Stone Cold running around like telling Vince to go bleep himself. And, I just identified with the guy. And so of course I watched, when I was a kid growing up, I watched Andre and Hulk and Jimmy Superfly Snukem and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And so I kind of amass a lot. I've been watching a lot of the wrestling interviews that Stone Cold has been doing, and then just watching a lot of the historical stuff again, just to kind of reintroduce. And of course, you and I have been corresponding a little bit back and forth about, hey, well, who do you think of this and that? And I just think it's well, you can't, this is that's what entertainment is just to have a conversation about it. And you're not going to always agree with someone's opinion. Movies or music or sports are no different. It's just it's part of the lexicon of pop culture, and you just it should be enjoyable. That's what I think. What I can say where I'm at in my age is I don't know anything anymore. I don't fucking pretend to know anything. I'll just say, let's do shit that you enjoy. Let's talk about stuff that you enjoy. Let's why focus on the negative? But I'm sure we're going to have some conversations where we're like, oh, I don't like what they're doing here and there. And I think that's just part of, us being wrestling fans and enjoying, the content we're seeing, and hoping that we want those guys to push it to the best they can. We want to see the best matches and the best storylines. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. So,
dude, that's what I'm saying. I'm welcoming you over to our side of the IWC, because I know that you're like-hearted in that same way. But, what I was going to say real quick, Bishop, when I meant tear apart the product, I didn't mean it as in like a vicious assault of the product. I mean, we eat the meat down to the bone. We get into it, and that's what I mean by tear it apart. We do not leave anything on the plate. We lick the plate clean and say, yeah, I didn't like it all that much, but I'll have another. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that a plate of crow? Crow?
Or sometimes we've been loving it. As a matter of fact,
that's true.
For this whole past few months, it's all been killer.
Well, I've been handing out crow. I've been handing out crow on a couple storylines. I've been correct on a lot of things, which is great, because I like to look at things positively. But we'll get there. Your show, brother. We'll get there. We do have Hot Take Hockey coming through the YouTube chat saying, hey, Legends, what's up, man? Cheers to you. As we get to the cheers, I want to start with Bishop. What's in your glass, man? Just seltzer and lime. I think we've learned over in episode 1, or I think in episode 1, that the more Bishop drinks of the alcoholic variety, it might be slightly more entertaining, but not as factual. And less on the rails. So I think we get the best content with a sober Bishop on your show. So I'm here for Seltzer and Lime. Plus, it's October, so somebody's got to do sober October.
Oh shit! It is sober October. We did that last year with the whole like fundraising thing. I think we raised nothing, but we did it. Yeah, dude. Also, it's not about what you're drinking; it's about who you're drinking with, and we're happy that we are your drinking buddies today. Sports Beard, what's in your glass?
So today, just for the show, it's custom-made glass that Steph made. It says "Remember to have fun." Don't know if you can see on the screen there. It awesome. Is Woodford and Reserve, and it's a special edition that they made for the C-23. The shirt that was the aircraft I flew a lot of my combat missions on in the Army. So the ice ball is a little thin now, which is probably good. I'm not much of a big drinker anymore. So, but yeah, looking forward to it, man. I was like, I can't show up to Wrestling on the Rocks without a drink on the rocks. So,
oh yeah. Well, after a few years of episode ones, you learn that it's all about who you're drinking with. Being your drinking buddy is more important than what you're drinking. Today, I'm having some Capo Cagna Chardonnay. This is Carmela's wine. They just went under a new rebranding, so it's not even Capo anymore. It's Kappa, and they just changed all the labels. So this is basically a collector's item now. So I'm going to drink it because we have more coming in the mail. Any day, we ordered her rosé. Brand new rosé they put out, and it's coming with some Chardonnay and some Cabernet as well. Big fans of her wine around here, so thought we would have some. Let's see. So cheers to Hot Takes Hockey and Jeremy in Time and Justin Time all hanging out in the chat already. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, John Viveros, Hot Take Hockey, is a great dude, man. You need to check out his channel if you're a hockey fan. It's the best hockey content on YouTube for sure. Guy's a legend. He's a super cool guy. Played the sport himself. Based out of Toronto, and a real good friend of mine. I look forward to doing some more content with him someday. For sure, man. Cheers.
Cheers. Let's see. As far as news goes, I really don't have anything like news actually. So I'm just gonna say that tomorrow MLW is gonna be on Vice TV, the Fightland event. I was gonna call it a pay-per-view, but it's just free on Vice, so it's not a pay-per-view. Bishop, you were there live for the taping.
Yes, I was.
So we're doing a watch along tomorrow night. Me and Amanda Jane, and still haven't heard back from Clump. He's been having a lot of busy personal life lately, so we're gonna find out if he'll be on as well. But we're gonna do a watch along of it. Bishop, no spoilers. What can we expect?
Honestly, I was sitting in the crowd and I go, man, if AEW wrestled this way, I'd watch.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved it. Damn, I forgot my guy's name who I was sitting next to, but he looked. What's that?
Oh, nothing. I thought you were talking about E Judge or whatever.
Oh no, Judge was awesome. He has a look to him that, I mean, and then the guy I was sitting next to was like, yeah, he got kicked out of NXT. I said, for what? He goes, for not being good. I was like, well, he's really good here. Mm-hmm. He did like 8 spine busters in a row, and they operate in a really small ring too. So it's when you get like more than 3 people in the ring, it's a clusterfuck. But I had such a great time. But the live show was 5.5 hours. So I went expecting like maybe a house show, and I got SummerSlam. Like, not quality wise, because people are still learning out there, but it was so fucking long that I was ready to go before the Fightland part even started. But it was great. It was honestly the wrestlers and performers, they tried their best to wrestle with each other, is the best way I can say. I mean, that's how I enjoy wrestling the most, is when you see the synchronizing, when you see them putting the work in together, as opposed to, I'm going to do my thing. Now you're going to do your thing. Then I'm going to do my thing. I thought they did a great job. Without any spoilers, just for personal taste, I was overwhelmed with how great Fatu was, and a little underwhelmed at what Hammerstone was. I don't know Hammerstone as a particular character. He seemed more Terminator-like to me, as opposed to really showing any explosiveness. And when you have the explosivity of someone like Fatu, maybe you do have to slow yourself down. But I was blown away. There was some dope spots. Look for me. I'm wearing the pink TWT. I tried getting it on camera a bunch. I tried putting myself over more than the show because at that time I was ready to fucking leave. It was so late.
Yeah.
But no, I had a blast. I hope it. Here's the one thing, because you even told me this too. It's so much better when you're there, regardless.
Yeah.
I hope it translates to TV. The crowd loved it. In the ECW arena, the 2300 arena, it's so small. The crowd was trying to put themselves over in between matches by saying your side sucks, and I was in the middle, and nobody said that our side sucked. So that was great.
Perfect. So funny.
But yeah, it should be great.
Yeah, MLW is one of the ones where after NWA Power kind of disappeared and now it's behind a paywall and it's doing what it's doing, it went through the huge shift. They're creative. A lot of their backstage and over half of their talent had left NWA, so I really didn't know what I was going to be watching anymore. And then they put it behind a paywall, and I just decided I wouldn't pay for something I didn't know what I was getting yet. But we did switch on MLW after being really disappointed that AEW wasn't quite the alternative we thought it was going to be. It's just somebody else's fart jokes. You know what I mean? And we were really, really surprised and refreshed by MLW. That's why we're really excited in putting it over. And that's why we're going to be doing the watch along tomorrow, because it felt like a new, refreshing thing. It felt different. And I agree, as far as like the wrestling quality in and of itself, I was blown away. I was like, oh, this is
I'll tell you this much.
Be.
Just again, with no spoilers, just to put a couple people over. Tank Man was outstanding in person. I saw him before on TV. I don't remember where. Alex Mack makes his debut, and nice. He wrestles Tank Man. But they were incredible. And TJP, who has had his ups and downs for the last couple of years, he wrestled with such a level head.
Yes.
He performed at the ability that we all saw when he won the Cruiserweight Classic. He's a heel now. I didn't know that. So the dancing's gone, the buffoonery's gone, and he plays into it. I am such a fan again of his, because it just seems like he's taking it that much more serious. So those three guys for sure super impressed me when I didn't expect it. TJP, Tank Man, and Alex Mack.
Very cool. And Jacob Fatu. And Jacob Fatu should be someone.
That was expected, though. Yeah.
So Hammerstone is a bit of more methodical. He's a bit old school, classic style. I mean, it's no coincidence he does the Hogan pose and tries to have a Hogan tan. That's really kind of more where he leans. But as Fabtina makes reference to in the chat, Hammerstone had to cancel an upcoming show because of his ankle. Within the first 5 minutes of that match, Kurt Bauer had a press conference today and mentioned that Hammerstone broke his ankle or twisted it. He did some damage to his ankle within the first 5 minutes of the match, and so he's out for a bit now.
Okay.
So I wonder if that plays in at all to what you saw versus what he was capable of doing.
It's very possible. Very possible. I was overly entertained. There's a spot outside the ring. No, I'm sorry. There's a spot outside the ring where I try to get my T-shirt on TV for sure. But there's a spot in the ring that when it happens, I have the perfect video of on my phone, and I'm thrilled to keep that video forever. So, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm thoroughly impressed. The next thing they're doing in Philadelphia, which is only an hour, just under an hour from me, is what they call it, War Cage. So I guess they're going to do a war game style event in November, and I want to go. I'm just working on logistics, so stay tuned.
Very good, very good. Not a lot of wrestling shows go up to Alaska. Sorry, Sports Beard.
I do believe Raw came up here one year at the Sullivan Arena, and I did not go, but this was probably early 2000s. And I think it was kind of like their B crew. I think I read some reviews on it. It was okay. But like none of the big, like John Cena, Brock Lesnar. I want to say that time frame, like 2003.
I do think I think it's almost like how often it snows in Arizona, where it's like once every 6 years. I think it's about how often they do a live show run out there. Because I do remember seeing some pictures just a couple years ago, but it was like just a live show, and it probably would have gone unnoticed. It probably wouldn't even. Is there a smaller arena than Sullivan?
So
Is that
what
the ice rink?
What I'd say is the Sullivan Arena is not usable anymore.
Yeah.
The Aces haven't been around since 2014. There were rumors the Muni was using it for homeless people during the pandemic. I don't know what's going on with it, obviously, because we've been going through this COVID stuff. The kind of premier arena now is the Alaska Airlines Center that's out at the university. It's much smaller than the Sullivan, though. I think it's probably about 3,500. And so I just think there's probably not a venue big enough for WWE to like fly their superstars to Alaska and do shows. Now, Fairbanks may have a little bit bigger arena for the UAF. That hockey team is still going. And the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But I don't know. I mean, like Foo Fighters were here just a few months ago, but they played the Denina Center, which is like a convention center. So, again, I just don't. I mean, again, they're a pretty big band, but I don't know what WWE or AEW, any of those shows, like if they'd ever consider coming up here. I imagine they do the cost analysis thing, and but I mean, they do Canada. I'm sure they do Canada, right? I mean, like you figure they do Canada, they would do Alaska. They could literally drive here, unlike Hawaii or something. So I don't know. Like maybe I'd go to a show.
Ironically, the reason that they go to Canada is because Canada's got such rich history in wrestling that it's not that hard for them to sell stuff out. It's just unsure of if a town like Anchorage is going to fill up an arena for a WWE event. And the pictures I saw of them was just like a small crew, like you'd said. There was like 8 or 9 different wrestlers I saw posting pictures of it, and it wasn't like their main champions. It was people who are big-time champions now. Like I remember New Day and Bayley, and I think Sami Zayn was out there. But they weren't the names that they are right now when they were out there. So maybe I don't know. I think
if they, sorry if I stepped on you there. I think if they promoted the shit out of it, they could do a pay-per-view event, because what you're talking about is you're like, well, there's not a lot of people here. Well, there's 350,000 people in Anchorage, and you got 2 military bases, and the wars are kind of over right now. So you got a lot of people here. So like, especially with like the laxed rules in Anchorage, and they could probably do a show if they did like a 3-6 months promotion. Like they could easily sell out a big show. It's just what venue are you going to have it at, and is it going to be worth the cost to get the people here?
And I agree too, because most of those concerts sell out because so many people don't go to Alaska because of how much it costs to get there. They're starved for live events.
I'll say this. I don't know if you remember, in the late 90s, Metallica had kind of gone dark, and they did a concert in Tuktoyaktuk, Canada.
Bless you. Did you sneeze?
No, it's a native name, Tuktoyaktuk.
Gotcha.
And they did I remember it because it's like they're playing Tuktoyaktuk. Like, what's in Tuktoyaktuk? Like, why can't we get Pearl Jam for Talkeetna or something? Because you have enough room, right, for some of these. Like, there's enough room up here to do the biggest show in the world. Like, I'm 5 minutes away from Kincaid Park. They used to do Blues in the Green. You could get 10,000 people out there, if you shuttled people out. So it's just, and they had seating and everything. But just like open seating, you could have like outdoor stuff like crazy. But so I don't know, man. Like, it's just really a venue. It's a proper venue indoors where weather isn't a factor. The summertime would probably not be a good time to do it, honestly. I think the fall or the spring or even the winter would be time where people are like, what are we going to do? Oh, there's a WWE event. So, I've never stressed it too much. I think if you're a diehard WWE fan, you could probably catch a Seattle show. It's, $400 plane ticket to Seattle, and, you can make the show there. So that's probably your best bet. I don't know. What did you do when you were growing up here? Like, you grew up here, you went to high school here, you were a fan of this stuff. I mean,
I went to the
watched
one
it on
local
cable
show
like everybody else, right?
I just watched it on cable, and then the one time I remember it was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Don Marie, Roadkill from ECW, and I don't remember the other person. That might have been the biggest names there. They had a wrestling show that was in. It might have been the ice rink, but I went to that. I took a bunch of pictures. I took one of those pictures, dude. I must have been 16. You can even see the back of actually, I can send you the picture. You could tell me exactly what venue it is because you can see like the backstage area and some stickers on it that say Anchorage, Alaska and stuff.
Yeah, text it to me.
Yeah. I got the picture printed because that's what I took the picture back when I was 16. Remember when I was first starting photography, and I snapped a picture of Hacksaw. He's giving me the big thumbs up. I saw him just 2 years ago, printed it up, black and white, take it over to him, and had him sign the picture I took of him when I was 16 years old. Framed it up with a piece of wood that he signed. It's pretty dope.
You told me that when we were down in Arizona a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize that was from the Alaska show. I should have, that didn't dawn on me that you did that when you were 16.
He was the first wrestler I ever met.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't really have hell else for news, so I would figure that before we get into the draft and all that, Bishop, you'd mentioned it to me before. Sports Beard, you stopped watching sometime in the late 90s. Well, the last time we saw a King of the Ring pay-per-view was in 2002, so you haven't missed a ton of them. They've had several King of the Ring tournaments on TV since then. Not a lot, but a few. Sam Roberts, if you check out Not Sam Wrestling podcast, did a tremendous breakdown of the entire history of King of the Ring. And if you're a little bit patient, in the next week or two, a video version with pictures is going to drop on his YouTube. So you might want to keep an eye out and take a peek at that when it comes out if you want a little bit of the history that you may have missed. But they're bringing back King of the Ring, and for the first time ever, the Queen's crown. We'll give it a second, Bishop. And the first time ever, the Queen's Crown tournament, which I'm assuming will be just like King of the Ring, but for women.
Makes sense.
That's how it sounds.
Yeah,
they haven't given us any rules. Go ahead.
Well, that's what shook me up. They didn't give us anything except a commercial.
Yeah.
And then is it culminating at Crown Jewel? Is it going to be some Saturday Network special? What are we getting here?
We are going to find out this week. As I was rewatching Raw for I think the third time today, because I just get so distracted, man. I gotta catch it all. But as I was rewatching it, they did make mention during that commercial that this week is going to be the start of it. So I think it's going to be similar to the way that it was. Televise a few matches and get a single match culmination at a pay-per-view. I'm not a fan of that style at all.
Yeah. No, I thought, because back in the day we had the quarterfinals or the qualifiers, then quarterfinals, and then it would be semis and finals on pay-per-view. And that's, I mean, that classic formula. But again, we're so old. That's almost 20 years ago. So what's classic anymore? Either way.
The winner would have three matches. So that would be that would be three brackets, right?
Oh yeah. So quarters, semis, and then
and then finals.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sports Beard, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say they have to figure out the women's championship thing, right? Because you have Becky Lynch coming to Raw, obviously the Rollins family or whatever coming to Raw. And you have Charlotte Flair going to SmackDown, and they both have the titles for those respective brands. So you figure the next 3 weeks are going to kind of resolve that. And I kind of thought these King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring tournaments. And by the way, just coming back into wrestling, the women are actually some of the better matches at nights. It's really fun to see, because I mean they were tertiary characters 25 years ago, and so I mean Trish Stratus and Chyna weren't, but outside of that, I mean I couldn't even I remember Miss Elizabeth with Macho Man Savage and stuff like that. But if you're getting some email here, I apologize. Close my email here. I just feel like the women's division is so awesome now. I'm almost enjoying the storylines from those like what they're doing there more than like the main roster stuff. Just from my perspective, like I could the potential with all the, stuff, Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks and stuff like that. I do not understand though why you'd have like Bianca and Sasha against each other than to separate them, because correct me if I'm wrong, Bianca did go to Raw. Is Bianca going to Raw?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Bianca's going to Raw. Sasha's going to SmackDown, and we'll break that down a little bit too. But they've already had they had their big match at WrestleMania. They've had a couple of little clusterfucks after that didn't culminate into much. I think teasing because they know that those two can be so good. I think they're actively trying to avoid the Becky Charlotte issue they have. I think they want to keep them a fresh rivalry for as long as they can, and splitting them up will ensure that in a year's time when they revisit it, there's the anticipation of the last time we saw them really lock arms and get a full match was WrestleMania, and it was amazing. You know what I mean?
To Sports Beard's point, and back to bringing it to where you had it, I'm assuming, right, no champions in this. We might get Shinsuke in it because he's King Nakamura. We might get Damian Priest in it, but you wouldn't think Charlotte would be in the Queen of the Ring or the Queen's Crown, right? Because she's not lined up for anything, is she? Because Becky has the triple threat at Crown Jewel.
Yeah, she's not. I thought about that too. I don't know. I think it's possible. I think nothing's off the table when it comes to the WWE creative.
Of course.
I don't want her in there, but I get my gut tells me that Queen of the Ring is going to be a device to start a new rivalry with someone with Charlotte Flair. That the Queen of the Ring will win it, and it will be somebody on SmackDown who will then say, I'm the queen, and then here comes, like, very Bret Hart, Jerry Lawler style.
Yeah.
Except, well, it's SmackDown, so maybe they will do a Kiss My Foot match. SmackDown is all over WikiFeet. Like, that's their thing. So maybe they would go that route.
And Shayna's there, too. So you could potentially have 3 queens on SmackDown.
I just want to say, like, I think Shayna is who they should use because I love her. Like, I'm a fan of her. I was a fan of her when she was a mixed martial artist. She's kind of from the same, like, she grew up in the Dakotas. I'm from Montana originally, but Indian reservation kid. Like, I just, like, they're not utilizing her. If they're doing what I hope they're doing with her, but let me ask you guys, this is my biggest question. How are they going to get the Raw women's title into Becky's hand and the SmackDown women's title into Charlotte's? And are we going to go a year with them having the opposing titles? That to me is not fair to Bianca and Sasha, who I think are probably the better wrestlers, honestly.
So I got two options for you, Sports Beard. Last year, when they did the draft, the Raw Tag Team Champion and the SmackDown Tag Team Champions got drafted to opposing brands.
Okay.
So what they did is they had Adam Pearce stand between them and say, all right, on 3, switch them over. And they counted to 3 and just handed the title to the other team. And they went, all right, done. And what makes that worse is they all went and got a new championship title reign accounted for on their thing. So, like, New Day they had gone from, 6-time Raw. And for the sake of numbers and me not having it in front of me, if it was 6 Raw and 6 SmackDown, and they did that, and they took their Raw titles and handed them away, it would have been like, all right, now we're 7-time SmackDown champions. Even though there was no match or winning, it was simply a color of the belt issue. So
I'm not a fan of that. That makes no sense. No, but I mean, they're in the business of fan service, right? Like, give us some service. Like, have Becky and I don't know. I guess. Becky fight somebody from SmackDown. Have Becky fight Sasha Banks. Have Charlotte fight somebody from Raw, and like she could fight Becky. I mean, I get it. You want to make those matches the big deal, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but it does feel like they've been pushing a little bit more title matches on like the weekly shows. Mm-hmm. which that was a little bit more rare in the 90s. Like you waited for all the stuff builded to the pay-per-view, right? But but I also understand these people are coming out of COVID. People want to see something big and grand, and you're paying a lot of money just to see Raw or SmackDown or NXT or whatever it is. I think NXT is still not people, right? Do they just do all that out of the Full Sail campus there? Is that where they do the NXT stuff?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. But
it's
like,
very close.
Just as a paying customer, a wrestling fan, generic wrestling fan, wouldn't you, I mean, you want to see Damian Priest, or you want to see King Nakamura, or you want to see whatever, but like some of the bigger titles, like I've seen that they've done the Raw, RK Bro, they've defended it a couple of times. It seems like, I want to say, just for your guys's, I kind of came around just a couple weeks before SmackDown and really had been following it, or not SmackDown, I'm sorry, SummerSlam. So I missed WrestleMania. I didn't see it. Even though I had Peacock, I didn't see it. So I'm trying to get caught up on a lot of the storylines, but you know, once a wrestling fan, always a wrestling fan, right? You can kind of jump in and see this is what's going on. I can see who's being the heel, who's being the baby face. What's really going on. And Chris and I talked a little bit. I really want to see like Edge fuck up Seth Rollins' family like bad, like steal his baby, do some fucking horrible shit to that motherfucker. Just my opinion, like that shit needs to happen, because I root for the good guy, man. I'm sorry. I like the good guy thing. I know the heels, like Roman, I want to see him get his ass beat by Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar is what traditionally the heel, right? And by the way, Chris and I were saying this. I don't know what you feel, Bishop. His new look is bad fucking ass. He looks like a lumberjack from hell. I'll quote Pat. He is the alpha male of our species. If aliens come, we're sending that guy, right? Like, it's so crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, coming back in right before SummerSlam, you came back in at a funky time where storylines they're slow building, and at least from my perspective, they're really, really working on step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, instead of going step 1 to 12, which is something they used to do back in the day. I just said it on my latest episode, TVTakesPodcast.com for all audio platforms. That when we used to have an Extreme Rules, the episodes right before Extreme Rules, everybody would rush into an Extreme Rules match regardless of storyline. This time, no stories required it, no stories got it. And so to your point, when you're saying, well, shouldn't they swap the titles? Yes, and I think they get there. I'm not much of a fantasy booker because I usually get let down. And they're already set up for it, though. Bianca and Becky both got drafted to Raw, and they're in the SmackDown title match at Crown Jewel with Sasha, who's on SmackDown. The obvious play there, because the new roster is going to affect the drafted roster is going to affect the next day. The move is to have Sasha win that match, take the title over to SmackDown. Now you have to find that way to get Charlotte to lose the belt. The only one she's really beefing with is Bianca, because she steps her nose in Bianca's business. Bianca can say something, give Bianca a quick win over Charlotte. Now the titles switch and everybody go about their way. Those kind of things can play out, but because they're we had a pay-per-view, a draft, a Saudi show coming up, not really sure what's coming out of that, a rebranding of NXT, everything's kind of thrown up in the air. And I think instead of letting everything fall, they're picking the pieces and they're putting them in a spot. Picking the pieces, put them in a spot. And as they start to line up, I think it's get a lot more clear, possibly after Survivor Series, just so everything gets laid out and then fine-tuned. And then, of course, if injuries happen and shit like that. So everything you just said could quite possibly happen. But in storytelling and TV time-wise, you can't really have the good guy kidnap a child just yet. You have to build to that. Because all Seth did was open an unlocked door, eat an apple, and drink some orange juice. No, I mean, he really didn't do anything else. You know what I mean?
I totally get it. You also have to understand too, like, I'm coming from basically the Attitude Era to present day, and the shit that they did in the Attitude Era is it's legendary, right? Like
Pillman pulled a gun on Austin. Like, fucking happened.
Right, like
a 90-year-old
right.
gave birth to a hand.
This
stuff isn't happening anymore. You got to
they're
slow
not
down
Choppy
just a
your
little
pee-pee. Ring a bell to anyone?
Yes.
Choppy
Oh,
choppy
yeah.
your pee-pee?
bit. Yes.
I've been following The Godfather on Instagram, and he's been hanging out with Undertaker and stuff, and I know Undertaker's doing some promotional stuff and yada yada yada, but you couldn't get away with the Godfather character nowadays, right? Obviously. No. So, but what you were saying, Bishop, kind of bothers me though, because you as a diehard fan, you know how it goes. This is how it goes. This is how it goes. You basically just called straight out of their playbook. And if it happens that way, exactly the way you said, I'll be disappointed. Because
that's why I don't fantasy book. That's why I don't lay those things out, because there's potential for it to happen like that. And if it does happen, it's like, okay, it just happened. But if something like SummerSlam happens where Becky shows up out of nowhere, wins in 26 seconds, throws a wrench into the whole system, and then the story plays out, it's like, oh shit, here we go. Like this is what we do here. We get sucked in, we get hit over top of the head, we think we know everything, and then boom, here's a curveball. That's the point. That's the point. I was just trying to calm you down. It looked like you were about to jump through the ceiling there. So I just wanted to bring you back down to earth a little bit and just say, hey, there are a couple things. And that's what I do, at least for my show, Turbo Wrestling Takes Podcast, ToTakesPodcast.com, is I take what's in front of us. So what's in front of us is the match at the Saudi show. Sure. And the match at the Saudi show is 2 Raw women and 1 SmackDown woman. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. Now, I don't root for the winner because I don't know who it's going to be, and I'd much rather lean that way, not knowing. And if Becky wins, honestly, it is like, well, what do we do now? Because we still have to get the title over there. If that match does go that way, Sasha does win. Now it's like, okay, what happens on Raw now? Now we got to tune into the show to see what happens. And, what does Sasha do now? So that's, so you got to think the next layer. Yeah. Because the further out you think, the more possibilities happen, and you don't get sucked into, well, why the fuck did this shit just happen? And that's when people get all pissed off.
All right, hold on. Let me address a couple things real quick.
Go ahead.
Let me address a couple things. One, in terms of stealing a baby, Bishop's right. You can't just have a baby face steal a baby.
Right.
Twist the whole thing around. However, well, Chris, I will say counterpoint. Okay. Bray Wyatt broke into the Miz's house and attacked his baby and was still the baby face in that match. So to your point, it could work.
Nobody saw Bray do it though. He just left a doll.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. So just to say, like, I don't want it to escalate in one episode like that. But again, I'm going to say I come from the Attitude Era. Who's left from that era? Edge. Yeah. Hardy, Matt Hardy, right? Or is it Jeff Hardy?
Jeff.
They're both around in their own way.
Well, yeah, Matt's in
their own
AEW,
way,
right?
Yeah.
So, but doing research, getting back in, seeing Edge coming back for, was it? Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Greatness.
Royal Rumble, greatness. Right? Royal Rumble was kind of his coming back.
Yeah.
And that was a few years back. Correct me if I'm wrong. But nobody thought that guy was coming back to wrestle because of his injuries, right?
Yes.
So it was this huge thing. So it's just like Stone Cold saying he couldn't be the heel because just everybody loves him. His, just like you were saying, Bray Wyatt, everybody loves Bray Wyatt. It's just impossible for some guys to be a heel regardless of how they act, this, that, or the other. I'm not looking for the escalation of force. Like tomorrow, I want to see like Edge burning down Becky and Seth's house. But what I'll say is, Chris, you brought this up to me and I didn't know any of this, but it sounds like there's some like personal beef between like Edge's wife, Beth Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
And, Becky and Seth Rollins. I just wonder, does that play out? Do we actually get to see that? And to me, like, that's very Attitude Era-esque if they even go down that road. I kind of hope that's what happens.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Was that the way they could go that would avoid the theft of a baby? I will say though, Willow's a fantastic movie, and the brownies screaming "I stole the baby" is something I scream a lot around the house. So like, I'm still on board with the stealing of babies,
Gotcha.
but
So I wasn't
Becky
aware
Lynch.
that babies were stolen before. Sorry, again, I stepped on you there. I wasn't aware that there was this whole baby stealing thing that's already happened. So again, I missed the Bray Wyatt stealing the Miz's baby, but I'll just say
He threatened the baby in its face, so which is different. I mean, a baby could have fought back, but Miz is your dad. You're not fighting back. So there is the Twitter beef history between Becky and Beth. Also, so far as to go before Edge made his return, he had a sit down with Becky in the ring, and he was trying to tell her to stop being a bitch and don't turn back on all your friends. And she's all like, "You're a little wimp and your neck is broke. I'll fucking break your neck again," and like walks out on him more or less. So there's enough there, I think, between Becky, Edge, and Beth that you could push forward a storyline where Edge, Seth, Becky, and Beth are all circulating in the same story, doing their own thing, though.
It would make sense. They tried it before, and that was with Seth and Becky as baby faces. And this run, the way they're both dressing, the attitude, the nose in the air, it's gold. It's gold. It would work on any level.
I think so. Something else I wanted to run back real quick too. Talking about the idea of swapping the titles versus having them go back and lose their titles on their respective brands. You're talking about Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Do you feed a Becky Lynch loss? Mind you, she has not lost since pre-WrestleMania 35. It's been over 2.5 years. We're going on close to 3 years from the last time Becky Lynch had a loss at all. Are you going to throw it away on a simple, we need to get a different title on her? You know what I mean? Now,
yeah.
Bishop saying, hey, you could do the triple threat. You could have Sasha get the pin on Bianca because of some tomfoolery, and now you have Bianca with a win, Sasha with a win, and when they finally touch heels again in a year or two, it'll be the rubber match, and we'll see what happens. You could do that, and then Becky can be like, God damn it, Bianca, you lost my title. Like, you could, and then feed into that potential story. But I do think you got to play Becky's first loss in 3 years really careful.
Well, I have to say, like, I'm not sure that it's that believable to me that Bianca loses to Becky in 26 seconds. Now, I don't know what the reasons were that they shortened that. If Becky just coming back from having a baby and couldn't actually wrestle, I know that sort of thing plays part in the storyline. But for me, like, why would you do a character that you've worked pretty hard to build up in Bianca Belair kind of dirty like that? It just and I get it. It's that old heel baby face and you need all that and you've got to have it to drive the whatever. And it's just kind of the way wrestling works. But it just felt kind of, I don't know. It felt sort of lazy to me. Like if she cheap shotted her with a chair or something, but it was like, I don't know. Like it was,
it's the best thing. It's the best thing. Yeah, it's the best thing that's ever happened to Bianca. She, if you want to check out episode 105 of the Terrible Wrestling Takes podcast, I called this shit from the beginning. They did build a Bianca that was a baby face, but they stopped at reasons to give a shit about her. And losing to Becky in 26 seconds and constantly feeding into the fact that she got one-upped, and you know, Becky. Also, I said this, she got the Brock Lesnar treatment because she is that special. Becky is that special as a wrestler. Like Marsh said, it's almost 3.5 years. You know, we're going on so long. You know, I think that the time frame actually doesn't mean anything to them because they've done it with Karrion Kross, like, you know, undefeated stuffs. They get that out of the way. Mansoor isn't undefeated anymore. They get that stuff out of the way. I don't think that the consecutive run she's having now is spinnable enough to keep it going forever. So getting it done now and building something new in Becky is easy for Becky to do. But to the same token, my first comment was to everyone who hated what happened at SummerSlam. If you're okay with the outcome, how long of a match did you want? Because then you're talking about somebody who took 18 months off, now has stamina to go in an athletic arena. No, Becky did what Becky did. This isn't WWE wrote the story and all that stuff. We don't know that. What I saw was Becky came back. She's the man in this house, in my house here in the basement of my son's mother. We call her the fucking man because she is. Becky's the fucking man because she pulls numbers. She gets you invested. She made Bianca fucking uproared on SmackDown. My buddy was in attendance. Shouts to at Matthew McNarley on Twitter. He said Bianca got the second loudest pop behind Brock Lesnar that night, and Becky was a definitive third. Bianca.
I was in the crowd, and I would say that's not true, but it was pretty big.
No, not SummerSlam. SmackDown.
Oh, the SmackDown. Okay.
SmackDown in Baltimore. Yeah, so from SummerSlam to Baltimore, she goes from getting, yay, we're here, happy to see Bianca, to uproared at seeing Bianca. That's the Becky effect. That's so the Bishop, Becky effect of the 26 seconds. Absolutely.
Yeah, what you're describing to me, Bishop, is that Becky helped put Bianca over more.
Yes.
In those terms, yeah. Yeah,
by screwing
absolutely.
Her.
Yeah.
So,
and that doesn't happen without 26 seconds.
It doesn't.
That makes sense.
Do you know that? Are you familiar with the Daniel Bryan story at all, Mr. Beard?
Yeah.
Do you know what caused the uproar for Daniel Bryan? The single thing that got the entire fans behind him that made WrestleMania 30 even possible, the whole thing that got the wheels turning, was a WrestleMania match where Daniel Bryan was Intercontinental Champion against Sheamus. Daniel Bryan goes out to the ring. He kisses his girlfriend at the time, Brie Bella, turns around. Sheamus bro kicks Daniel Bryan's head off 1, 2, 3, 8 seconds into the match. The crowd was so fucking furious that they would dare do that to someone as skilled as Daniel Bryan that we got the single greatest run of a babyface in the history of the company. Daniel Bryan became undeniably popular, and they gave Bianca the Daniel Bryan treatment. You know what really gets people behind someone they already like? Feeling like the company screwed them.
Right.
Why was Stone Cold over?
Yeah.
Because we all thought the company was screwing him
over. Yes. Yeah. Vince kept screwing him over. No, you're not wrong. I didn't play into the psychology of it, and that's why I love having these conversations with you guys, because then I learn about I learned something about it, and it just adds to the enjoyment. So I appreciate that aspect. Like,
it's what we're here for.
Yeah,
what we're here for.
But the thing is, too,
go ahead.
You got to realize, Sportsbeard, that what you said was a common thread of a lot of wrestling fans in the IWC in general. Bianca was trending as it wasn't like Bianca was screwed or something. I think it was Bianca Deserves Better was trending because that many people felt exactly like you felt, where there was a minority like me and Bishop having sips on our whiskey being like, this is going to be so good in a few months. You know what I mean? Right. Just wait it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, not to say that we're smart or anything, but at all, because we were emotionally invested. I was there in the arena at SummerSlam, and I was like completely confused because I went to send a tweet that I'm so happy I'm about to see a Becky match, and my brother slaps me on the arm going, it's over. And I was like, the fuck? And then, bah! And I was like, the fuck? I didn't know if I was supposed to cheer. I was so confused, but I did because it's Becky. I'm going to lose my shit. But
speaking of the draft, since we're talking, we're going to move into the draft. I wanted to tell you, I lost my shit on Twitter when I think it was Saxon or somebody shitting on Pat about the Mexican tag team going, good luck saying their name, McAfee. And I tweeted that, like, Pat can say words, and he responded. He's like, hey, who was it? He asked me who it was. So that was pretty cool. I thought that was cool. I mean, I went ape shit nuts when we were out on the town in Phoenix, and he responded to that tweet. So I just wanted to say, in line with the draft, I am a little disappointed that Raw is going to have this Belair Becky Lynch thing, and it's not going to be on SmackDown because I'm a fan of the SmackDown brand over the Raw brand, and not because of Pat. I'm not gonna because of Pat. I'm just gonna say it's because of Pat.
Yeah, 100%. The only thing I want to say to put a bow on the Becky Lynch 26-second match deal is she didn't use a chair, but she did sucker punch Bianca. Bianca was a bit starstruck because she'd never been face-to-face with Becky, really, except for briefly in NXT one time. And at bottom line, how long does it take Mike Tyson to knock someone out if he gets the blind shot on him? You know what I mean?
We saw the Hangover.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can get the blind shot, Tyson, doesn't matter who's in the ring with Tyson. If he can get a blind shot on you, you're going down. You know what I mean? Like, and that's,
to be fair, a lot of people can knock people out with a blind shot. Just telling you.
Sure.
Sure.
And then, but who better than a skilled fighter to get that blind shot to begin with? And then you're talking sniping, right? But either way. So here's the one view I have about how we can get out of this title predicament with the women's championships without having to do a lazy flip-flop of the titles or give the Becky her first loss in 3 years as a throwaway token, which maybe they do. They've thrown away a lot of streaks before, so who knows? But I would just rename the titles. Just flat out take SmackDown and Raw out of the titles. Call it the Women's World and the Women's Universal or something. How many times has the Intercontinental
I saw that
Championship?
idea on Twitter. Was that you?
Yeah.
Or somebody? Yeah, I saw that idea on Twitter. I said that's a fantastic idea. The Women's World title, the Women's Universal title, because when they go back and forth, all they do is change the strap, except for the Men's World title stays black. The Universal changes its color. I think it's a great idea. When I saw that, I was like, yes, that's what you do.
Yeah, why not? Because how many times have we seen, like you said, Universal's gone from Raw to SmackDown, and what they do, they change the leather. What happened when United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship switch brand? Not a goddamn thing. Yeah. They're just on a different brand now. Right. Do that with the women's titles. So that way a woman can stay champion when she gets drafted. There's no reason to have to strip a woman of a title to go to another brand just because.
Yeah. I 100% agree, Marsh. I think that that's exactly what they should do. And you're seeing this movement to equality with women and stuff in wrestling, and that Becky Lynch was the headliner of 35, correct? If I'm wrong.
Yep.
Yes.
WrestleMania. So you can have a headliner in WrestleMania. You can get rid of the nomenclature for the wrestling belts.
WrestleMania. I saw the sticker right here, WrestleMania, from when she headlined. Yeah, I agree. That's how I feel about it.
It sounds better too. Women's Universal title.
Mm-hmm.
Women's Universal title sounds way better than Women's SmackDown title.
Yeah, 100%.
And you can get stupid with it, like fucking call one a Galaxy title or something. Like do something weird. Like you could give it a different, call it the Women's Intercontinental. I don't give a shit. You could do something. But I think Women's World and Women's Universal is what I would do. Bishop, I just wanted to throw back real quick to something that Sportsbeard said a while back. He'd mentioned that one of the things that he's been hooked on the most coming back into wrestling was the women's wrestling stories and how good their matches have been.
Yeah.
They have been a standout. I wanted to revisit that briefly because I wanted you to briefly mention you stopped watching wrestling for a bit as well. Was that not true?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was out for a while. I would say from WrestleMania 19 to WrestleMania 31 was when I was gone. And when my son was born, I spent a lot more time stagnant. So I caught wrestling on TV, and then Roman was one of the first ones that hooked me, but more than anyone was Paige. Paige's ability to wrestle more or less like the guys. I mean, to your point, Sportsbeard, I grew up in the Attitude Era as well. It was Trish and Lita and no one else that could wrestle. Well, China went from wrestling to attraction to wrestling men legit to attraction of wrestling men. So, which is that's the business, right? That's what we watch. We, hook us in. And China was great, super athletic, especially for her size. But Paige brought me in, and then as I start watching, and I go, oh, the women are fucking good. So just like you were saying, and then the whole point of my podcast is, I mean, I was listening to people say that there's still time for popcorn matches with women. And the way I look at it, and a big reason why me and Marsh get along when it comes to talking wrestling is you said it. You said it. The women's wrestling, when it's at its best, is better than the men's matches. I think the men tell better stories as a whole, but the way the women can execute when it's on, it is fucking on. My personal take, terrible wrestling take or not, is I'm women's wrestling above all else. If the women's wrestling isn't good, you're going to have a hard time hooking me the rest of the show, because I've seen men wrestle for 36 years. Yeah. I'm 36. I've seen them wrestle my whole life. They do every single style left and right. But show me a woman who can fucking wrestle, and you got me hooked. And that's where I take the Becky Bianca storyline to heart, because I'm a huge Becky fan. And I'm so excited to finally call podcasts with her in action. But she's wrestled 2 matches and has gotten Bianca to that next level by wrestling 2 matches. And one of them was 26 seconds, and the other one ended in DQ. Yeah. There's storytelling now added to the women's division. So when other people want to mention, who's the best women's wrestler, and we do have quality ones out there, I always start with Becky because of stuff like this. Becky is fucking great. And when she is on, it's hard pressed for anyone else to touch her, men's or women's. So I'm glad that you enjoy the women's wrestling. You are associated now with the right people, because Marsh and myself go nuts over women's wrestling.
Yeah, and I want to throw that there too. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead. I just want to throw out. Go ahead.
So when Chris and I were talking a little bit about this, I said I watched Stone Cold's interview with Bailey, and I said, Chris, this girl reminds me of you, your passion. And he's like, like, yeah, like, I think, it was so funny to hear him. He's like, yeah, she's like my favorite. Like, I totally, and I want to tell you, I of course saw the movie, the Page movie, and became a, like, that was starting the seeds to kind of getting back in and watching it a little bit. So I'm with you, man. And I'll tell you, like, I don't want to take it. I don't think she's the best promo person, but Charlotte Flair can really do some kick-ass shit in the ring. I mean, I saw her doing like hurricanranas off the top rope onto people. I was like, oh my God, like that's Lita stuff right there. Like nobody did that shit other than Lita, right? Like Trish Stratus was a good wrestler, but Lita was the shit. Like you're like, I'm with you. Like, I think it's cool. Like you've actually made me become more of a Becky fan just because of how passionate you talk about her. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go back and watch her wrestlingography a little bit more and be like, well, I got to see how she came up, And I wonder if Paige is one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of these like Nikki ASH, and now we have we talked about, Chris and I talked a little bit before we were on, Dewdrop. I'm a fan of her, man. Like I'm a fan of those. Like, I like what they're kind of doing with Dewdrop and stuff like those. I think that you're not wrong, Bishop, I kind of feel like the women's stuff, the storyline is starting to catch up with the wrestling, which is really cool. Yeah. Honestly.
100%. And I was just going to throw out there.
That's going in the intro. That's going in the intro. The you're not wrong, Bishop's going in the intro.
I think you're not wrong, Bishop.
Wait till you check out, if you can, get some Time Sports Beer. Check out my show.
Sure.
TV Takes Podcast, Terrible Wrestling Takes Podcast. Marsh used to shout me out all the time and say some dumb shit. So I took a bunch of clips and I put it into my intro. So I think the You're Not Wrong, Bishop might go in there. That's a good one.
Yeah. It's going to be immediately followed by Bishop, you couldn't be more wrong. Again.
Well, again, we can have opinions on this stuff. It really doesn't matter, right?
It's a conversation.
We just want to be fucking entertained. I want to be entertained. I want to see awesome promos, and I want to see spectacular wrestling. And I don't mind if you throw some tables, ladders, and chairs in there. I don't have to see the thumbtacks getting thrown out on the ring like the Mick Foley days. Like I always cringe when I see that stuff still, because regardless of what you think, these guys are actually getting hurt in the ring, right? Like, I listen 100%. To I don't like Seth Rollins, but like because he's a heel, I'm not a big fan of the heels. But listening to his interview with Stone Cold, which I think was the most recent Broken Skull Ranch one, and them showing him blowing out his knee, and he still lifts, I think, Kane or somebody over his head. I was like, oh my God, dude, like, you guys are insane. And so I just respect the hell out of these guys. I mean, I'm not the fat wrestling fan crying like, what you do to your bodies, man? Like to Terry Funk. I know everybody knows that clip, right? Because it went viral.
He's actually a good friend of mine. He's actually a good friend of mine. His name's Dave Wills. If you go to prowrestlingtees.com / I think it's the Crying Fan, or Original Crying Fan. I designed a few T-shirts for him as well. Dave Wills is a great guy. Yeah.
Nice. I'm sure he is a great guy. I mean, he was obviously a huge fan. And you can get emotionally invested in these storylines. So like, I totally understand. I was watching, I don't know if it was about Ric Flair. It was Roddy Piper. I was watching a thing about Roddy Piper, and he got stabbed by the fans because, back in the day, people thought this shit was real, So it's like,
well, it's still real to me, damn it.
Yeah, right. That's the crime. Yep, exactly. So
So I want to throw out there real quick. I just love the idea that one of the things that was bringing you back in kind of hard was the women's wrestling being so on point, because I knew Bishop had Paige and me when I stopped watching for I was in and out for almost 10 years, where I would watch an episode here or there, watch a couple weeks in a row, and then fall off. I tuned in for Brooklyn 3 of SummerSlam, but it was the NXT one. I was watching NXT, and it was Bayley versus Asuka, and I remember being like, who are they? Both of these women are putting on an incredible match. It was super emotional. I was so into it, and I couldn't believe what was happening, and I was like, oh, everything is different now. None of it is what I remember, and it hooked me in. And that's one of the reasons why Bayley is one of my favorites, is she was literally the first match that made me go, I can't miss this anymore. I can't miss any more of her matches. And I went back and watched a bunch of the old ones too. Like, that's why I thought it was so interesting when, for one, you said the women's matches are better right now, and a lot of times was, fuck, women's wrestling is bringing back fans, just flat out.
Hey,
And
Sports Beard, sorry, go ahead.
For two, the idea that you said that Bayley reminded you of me was just badass, because she's the one who got me back into wrestling. So it was like, that's awesome, because she's someone I attached to right away. Her and Sami Zayn were the two that, as I started watching again, I just went, those are my two. That's, for whatever reason, I was just connected and just felt like they're the two now. But go ahead, Bishop.
Sports Beard, have you had a chance to go back and look at the Bayley NXT run?
No.
Or you okay? So if you go back and look at what hooked Marsh, it's such a great storyline, because Bayley, if I'm not mistaken, got injured, had to give up her NXT Women's title, and then this Japanese hurricane came through named Asuka and just dismantled everyone. And it was Bayley trying to come back to get her title back from this unstoppable monster. It's such a great story. That's where I was like, oh, I'm because I was itching, because Raw and SmackDown really weren't giving us women's matches at that time. I was dead into NXT looking for those women's matches, and I was like, oh my God, Asuka's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So it's definitely worth going back, which I'm sure Marshall send you as part of that. You got to watch this shit list.
Yeah, I'll at least give you one or two matches just to watch. So yeah, just things to break down as we were going is all. We could talk draft. We get into it. We're far enough into the show. I like all the derailings. If you guys want to derail the show at any point in time with the chat, go to twitch.tv/wrestlingontherocks. Go to wrestlingontherocks.com. You can find all of our links. Our shop has 3 new t-shirts, including a whole brand new design of World's Overweight Champion, as I call myself. I was already told by somebody that the fact it's a gray shirt was a diss to fat people in general, and I was like, come on. I can make a variant. So if somebody wants a variant of the World's Overweight Championship shirt, I can make it school colors. I can make it your NFL football team colors. You just let me know, and we will come up with a variant of that shirt. But before we get into all of that, I do want to shout out our sponsor, Flow State Coffee. Flow State Coffee is a specialty grade coffee with L-theanine and Rockin' Cow infused in the coffee. So it increases productivity and creativity. It gives you better energy, focus, and mood than a regular cup of coffee, while decreasing the negative side effects of coffee like anxiety and high blood pressure. If you go to newwave.co, that's NOOWAVE.co, and put in promo code CHEERS, you can get 10% off either your first bag in a subscription, because you can subscribe, get it every week, every other week, every month, every other month, whatever is going to work in your balance. You can get 10% off the first bag in subscription. You can just buy 30 bags straight out and get 10% off the whole order. Shirts, mugs, whatever you want. If they have a sale going on, because a lot of times they do, they're a really good company, owned and operated by an indie wrestler trained by Lance Storm. So he's constantly trying to get it in people's hands, so he brings the price down through sales. Our promo code applies on top of any sales that he puts on, so you can get an additional 10% off anything he's already got going on. That's newwave.co, NOOWAVE.co, promo code CHEERS. Bishop, you were telling me you had a cup recently you wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, I ended my subscription, and I told the guy honestly why, and he goes, "Hey man, anytime you're ready to hop back in, I'll give you a discount." I was like, "I appreciate that." I mean, the guy's such a cool dude. Actually, I emailed it support, and then he texted me. I was like, "That's a little personal," but then we got into a little bit of conversation. I was like, oh, "Okay, cool. We were more than fine anyway." But my problem was, it's an expensive bag of coffee, and I told him that, and I think I figured out how I can drink it regularly, and it makes sense. I went cold brew. I bought a cold brewer because I like cold coffee anyway. And then I made a pot of cold brew, and it barely used any grounds, and it was way too strong. Like, it packed a big punch. The cacao was in there. That light speed that you get from New Wave coffee. It was a little too high. Like, it says it won't give you the jitters. Well, it will if you concentrate it a little too much. So I'm actually going to cut it back. I'll be able to do, let's say, what I used to put in my Nespresso pods to do 1 cup. I'll be able to do like 4 cups worth and get like 12 cups of coffee out of it, efficiently use it, and have a great cup of coffee. So I think I'm extremely back on the New Wave bandwagon. So my new advice to anyone out there trying New Wave, wants to give it a shot, try a cold brew. It sat in my work fridge from the second I left work until the next morning. So about 18 hours, 16 hours, whatever that is. And it steeped perfectly. It was so good. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The cacao pops even more cold brew. So it had like this nice chocolatey feel to it without being too much chocolate. It was great. So I'm back on the New Wave bandwagon.
Yeah, I drink my coffee black, so I really like the idea, and I drink cold brew too, so I'm gonna probably have to try that. I like the idea of you saying you did it a little too high before, so you ended up in ludicrous speed, basically from Spaceballs.
I almost went plaid.
Nice.
Almost full plaid. What are you gonna say, Sports Beard?
Anytime you can get a Mel Brooks reference in, right?
Yeah.
I will have Mrs. Maxwell come on and talk about the coffee when we get it. We haven't gotten it yet, but we have subscribed. Yeah, we subscribed to it at the ball game, man. As soon as you told me, we got it. So one less thing we got to go to the store for, brother. I'm all about not going to the store anymore. I'm about it. I'm all about Instacarting and chilling out at the lake house. So Bishop, I live on a badass piece of property in Anchorage on a lake. Like, my wife I was enlisted, so like I didn't make a shit ton of money in the Army. So she makes good money, and so we're all about like subscription services that save us time driving around and shit like that. So I'm super excited for this coffee, even though I'm not really a coffee drinker. Get you some marijuana sponsors. I'll be all about that shit. So
we'll see if we can't get RVD and his CBD company to
absolutely
pitch us a little something. So
yeah.
But guys, that's newwave.co, NOOWAVE.co, promo code CHEERS to get on the New Wave bandwagon, as it were. So cool. Let's talk draft. I did make notes of SmackDown and Raw. As far as like particular highlights and things we ought to mention, I also have a list of flat out everyone who was drafted where in the draft. If I remember correctly, let me see if she finally got the draft. At the time Raw ended, Liv Morgan was a free agent.
She got put on Raw afterwards.
They did. Okay. They got her. Yeah, there it is. They got her on Raw Talk. So I was surprised by that. I was really surprised by LA Knight as well, not being drafted at all. But would you rather go through some of the highlights of SmackDown and Raw, or you just want to bullshit about the draft? What are you thinking?
Well, I have a question.
Real quick, sports beer. I was a little clustered trying to organize my thoughts on the draft, and I'm pretty good when you pitch it. I can hit it. So the only thing I organized for myself was the women's division. Other than that, I'm cool with free flowing.
Well,
Sweet.
Go ahead,
let me ask my one question, and then I really don't have any. I kind of already aired my questions about the draft, but my big question is, what makes zero sense to me from a business standpoint is packing the Raw roster during NFL season with Monday Night Football, because you are not going to beat Monday Night Football. Now, that being said, me living in Alaska, if the game isn't delayed, I can actually watch Monday Night Football and then watch Raw, and it doesn't conflict. But that's like, I'm a small segment of the population that can do that. So that's my question is, like, it doesn't make sense to cram Raw. Like, you're not competing against anything you're competing against AEW, right, on Fridays, but you're not competing against another wrestling outfit on Mondays. You're competing against the NFL. It's a monster. Just Google the Nielsen ratings. Nothing touches the NFL. Now, if it's a shit game or something, but I just don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You guys will have to explain that one to me. Like, I get why they've made the moves they made and stuff, but it doesn't make any sense to pack the Raw roster during the fall season. I mean, January or February when the playoffs start, there aren't any games on Monday. Mm-hmm. You guys will have to answer that one for me.
What do you real quick? What do you mean by pack the Raw roster? Do you think Raw won the draft with more talent?
Well, I'll tell you, like I said, I'm bummed out that Bianca and Becky aren't on SmackDown anymore. Why couldn't they have done that story on SmackDown? Chris said they needed to do it, right? They needed to put some more talent over on Raw. And I know that, there's some NXT, and then the wrestling, the Olympic gold medalist is going to Raw. But I also today heard on Pat McAfee's show, he is going back to Minnesota to finish his senior year, which means he will be competing for the NCAA. Now with the name, image, likeness, this guy can actually be an employee of the WWE. And
I think that's the coolest fucking thing, by the way.
That should have happened 30 fucking years ago,
it's
by the way.
so awesome that happened.
Can you imagine if he goes and wins another championship with a WWE logo on his fucking belly?
Dude, he's winning. God. He is going to win, Chris. He is going to win the NCAA collegiate wrestling championship. He just won the gold medal. He's winning.
And his new tights are going to have a fucking WWE logo on the chest, dude. That's what I'm saying.
If this new rule didn't take place, he would have to try his damnedest to go from the Olympics to WWE or AEW or anywhere. But he's actually allowed, because of this, to go back to school and serve all the purposes here. I think it's fucking amazing. It's so cool that it's happening. But I agree with you, because with Becky and Bianca going to Raw, to me, that's my reason to watch, right? But I don't think Raw got packed at all. I think that's honestly might be their only reason to watch. I thought they did themselves a big disservice on the Raw rosters. But
all right, we'll talk about that. Let me give you the whys. Because there's a whole bunch of like, why the fuck would you? And I think I have the answers for you. One, the draft isn't in February or March. So if they're going to pack a show to compete without the Monday Night Football, they have to do it now. And they have to do it now and get the ball rolling. So by the time February, March rolls around, you're so engrossed in the storyline that you're in. You know what I mean? People who are in through the Monday Night Football and all that. And there's, the talk of ratings and potentially the DVR world and all of that. A lot of people watch wrestling on their own time and not live, and that's just the way that it is, and it's fine. I'm not bothered by it. But it does mean a lot of that's skewed. If they front load Raw now, by the time football stops, Raw will be ready. The other reason that Raw gets more people, because you might be talking about inadvertently the fact that for every 2 that SmackDown got, Raw got 3. It's literally because the show is longer. And they've talked about it in the past that because Raw is 3 hours and SmackDown is 2, they will get a third more talent than SmackDown. They didn't really touch ground on that very much in this draft. I noticed they didn't mention it at all, but in previous drafts, they drilled it in.
Yeah, the draft, they actually didn't even do that because per round, they went 1 for 1. And even on SmackDown was allowed to go first. So I love the fact that they went 1 for 1, didn't over-explain the draft. This goes back to my Extreme Rules things again, right? They didn't hammer in the point that, oh, my God, we have an Extreme Rules. We got to put everything in Extreme Rules. No, they're not sacrificing storylines. They're just kind of putting things in place. It was first round, 2 picks each. They didn't even say that. They just said first pick, SmackDown, this, Raw, SmackDown, Raw, round 1 over. Bang. And then, yes, afterwards, they definitely free agent up in that, maybe twice as many free agents to even up for the time. So I love the fact that they didn't over-explain it because people used to bitch about that shit all the time. Oh, why would I know it's 3 hours, but it doesn't look and they got to explain it. Nope. They went, I thought this was the most fair way to present the draft. Yeah. Yeah. Does that help at all with that, Sportsbeard?
Yeah. And what I'll say is, as a guy coming back into wrestling, fucking brilliant that the WWE has a draft because the NHL has a draft, the NFL has a draft, the NBA has a draft. And I'll say the NFL draft, and to me, the NHL draft is really exciting because I'm a big hockey fan. The NBA draft, I could care less because they only have 2 rounds and, half the time top level guys don't make it. I think the NBA is probably more of a crapshoot than any of the sports just because of how, there's only 11 guys on a team, right? It's really hard to make a team. But I thought it was brilliant. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about, I like having the wrestling and stuff, but what do you think about just having a draft only show? It felt like I kind of thought that it was going to be like a draft, maybe just for a half hour, but I understand kind of why they did the wrestling and stuff too. You got fans there and stuff. So you can't just not have I know there's dark matches and stuff like that going on, but I was just curious, what do you guys think about just having maybe 30 minutes before, maybe SmackDown premieres a little early. You don't have to do it with Raw because you have the time, as you guys pointed out. Raw's 3 hours. I didn't think about Raw being a longer thing, and that's why they got more wrestlers, which makes total sense. Once again, Bishop and Marsh, you are right. I just feel I just wonder, could you dedicate a little bit more? I just felt like it was almost tertiary to what was going on during SmackDown and Raw, and it was sort of kind of a big deal of who was going where and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I will say they've had a few failed attempts, or what I believe to be personally failed attempts at perceived excitement about the draft. When Fox first got SmackDown, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago?
It was 2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago? They did a whole thing where they had the draft war room where in between every draft call, they took a shot, a video camera shot of an office room with a bunch of people in suits. And for the Fox one, it even had, that robot, that Fox Sports robot?
Cletus.
Yeah. Cletus.
Yeah.
Cletus.
Yeah.
He was in the war room. And he was there. He was present in the war room, standing there. And so it'd be all Roman Reigns drafted to SmackDown, and everyone in the thing, woo! And then the robot would start dancing and shit. It'd be what the fuck is this? And it was really distracting and awkward, and it seemed overly forced. And because they kept cutting back to it, it just didn't look live at all. It all looked like in the can. It just sounded like a fucking laugh track. And you're just what the fuck? I really appreciated them trying it at the time, but I was just don't bring it back. And they didn't. But there is a real negative output by the, quote, wrestling fans about the draft because they think that it's stupid. They think it's pointless. It's one brand of WWE that has these split shows. And I know a lot of people are even currently actively advocating against the brand split because they think that it does things like bring more surprise to the show. You don't know who's going to be on what show when. But I feel personally, and I want to get your guys' takes on them. I know Bishop's got probably an awful one. That's just kind of his thing. That I think having the brand split and having the designation of this is who is here provides the ability for more surprise when someone makes a return or when someone shows up on a brand they ought not be on. And I feel that it also allows for something that no other wrestling company is allowing right now, and that's the ability to breathe. And what I'm saying is, if you want to watch AEW, you've got to watch, and this isn't a knock on them, I'm just saying, you've got to watch 2 hours of Dynamite, 1 hour of Rampage, 3.5 hours of Dark, and 2 hours of Dark Elevation. That's assuming none of those shows go long, because all of their stars are on all of the programs all of the time. If you want to watch Raw, because that's where Becky Lynch is and she's your favorite, she's the only one you give a shit about, then you watch Raw once a week. If you want to watch SmackDown, because that's where AJ Styles is, and he's the face that ran the place, and he built the house, and that's your dude, and you've been supporting him since back in TNA, then you watch once a week for a couple of hours. It gives you ability as a more casual wrestling fan to find your favorites and follow them. And not be exhausted. And still watch Dexter at the end of the day.
What the hell
Hi,
was that?
producer lady. Hi, producer lady.
Hi, producer lady. So, for me, it allows the ability that now us, we wouldn't have a wrestling podcast if we weren't ridiculously crazy obsessive and saying, I'm watching it all. I don't care how you give it to me. And those are the people I think are complaining because they're like, well, I'm watching Raw and SmackDown anyways. I'm not going to stop watching all of them. You know what? There's a few people I know who only watch SmackDown. My brother-in-law only watches SmackDown because it's on Fox and he gets it. He only watches SmackDown. Imagine getting half the story every week. You know what I mean? So that's my take.
Hold on, you have a brother-in-law? You got married? I didn't know you got married.
No, not my brother. No, not that brother-in-law. My sister. Yeah, my sister got married.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
It still makes him a brother-in-law, right?
Yes.
By the way, Humberto Carrillo and
Angel
Garza is who who they said Pat couldn't pronounce. But I fucking 100% agree with you. I will say this: when I got back into wrestling, I wasn't watching Raw. And I get USA. There's no reason why I wasn't watching it. I was just watching SmackDown, and it was because of this guy right here, and that's why I got back into it. I mean, his passion.
Shoot over to Raw and watch Becky, and then maybe you'll find someone else on there that you can get into, like a Dewdrop, and then all of a sudden you're watching a little bit more. Well, and that's it's the game, man.
Well, to be fair,
Bishop, he's got his own podcast, and we're fucked because he's
I've been watching Raw the last month.
Yeah.
I've been watching it more regularly. And dude, it's not hard to like Michael Cole. I think he's, short of Jim Ross, he's probably one of the greatest of all time, play-by-play wrestling guys. And I love the chemistry him and Pat. I agree with you, Bishop. Like, once again, you were right. Like, Pat is so good at that role. It's just so believable. And dude, like him dancing on the table with Rick Boogs and King Nakamura, like if they took that away from him, I think I would have walked away. I would have been so fucking pissed. I would have been like, you're gonna let that go from SmackDown? Like, why? But like, so that was kind of the thing. Like, but you know what I wanted to see and from this draft, because I feel like the fucking bloodline hasn't paid the price enough, is move the Usos over to Raw, especially with this Paul Heyman story where Brock Lesnar gets to be a fucking free agent. And we all know that Brock Lesnar signed, a 6-fight deal or something. So they'll keep him. I
don't know that.
Well, yeah, it was reported that I don't know what the exact details.
I don't read reports. I don't know what reports
I don't understand contracts.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, Lesnar's going to be around for like 6 major things, right? I mean, he showed up to MSG, right?
That was pretty major.
Yeah, but that
showed up at the draft. That was pretty major
venue, right? And I want to revisit something real quick. Chris Marsh talked about he walked away from wrestling for a while. This is the guy, Wrestling on the Rocks. This is the guy that showed up to a New York Rangers Pittsburgh Penguins game at MSG with my wife and me wearing a championship belt. I can't believe you ever didn't watch wrestling. That blows me away. But anyway, I digress. I had to say that. As far as like who's left on SmackDown, like I'm really excited because I have not watched any NXT. You guys will have to tell me. I'm really excited to see this Xia Li. Oh. You guys have to tell me how she is.
Amazing.
And already, was it Jeff Hardy got smashed
SmackDown.
by that young kid. That kid looks intriguing to me. He's on Raw, right? So
Austin Theory, yeah.
yeah.
So
anyway.
let me run this through real quick because let's talk some draft stuff. Let's talk numbers, as they say. What do they say on the sports shows?
Quick? I'll make
All right,
it
go
quick. I
ahead.
promise. On the draft concept, they've tried doing when the network was first going around. They tried doing let's do some picks on the network to drive people to go watch the network and things like that. At the end of the day, it's impossible to do a draft. They're honestly, let's all filters aside, right? It's a TV show. You're not going to do a draft of The Walking Dead or The Big Bang Theory. You're just you know what I mean? Like it's so they're doing a thing. And if you like the thing, you like the thing. You don't like the thing, don't fucking watch. Like that's another thing I say a lot. But you give them the opportunity to do something that might be cool, then do it. I was a little disappointed with Liv Morgan not getting drafted too because they put a lot of time on her on TV. But then again, that's part of caring about her. Now you get to go see her on Raw. But to your point of making a bigger thing about the draft, I agree. It's too hard. They have to, again, the business side of it, they got to pay attention to what Fox wants, what USA wants. If they did the entire draft special on a Saturday on the network, that might be pretty cool. But you know what I mean? Like it's an impossible situation. So they try different things here and there. To Marsh's point earlier, I think this is one of the better laid out drafts that they did. And they just kind of did it, Yes, could they have done it better? Could they have paid more attention to it? Sure. But without having GMs for representation of both shows, without throwing streamers and fireworks and all that shit and podiums. Nope, it was just Sonya and Adam Pearce, who are the on-screen matchmakers. They made the picks representative of what the brands were, and that was it. At the end of the day, I'm curious how rosters are lining up. I don't give them an A, B, C, D, or F on the draft. I just think it was a decent outcome for having a draft. I don't think they missed. I don't think they missed on the draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff. Real quick in the chat, Grim Reaper comes through, friend of the show. He's got a baby, so he hasn't been on the show in a while because, babies keep you from podcasting, as they say. I believe they say that. Cheers to Grim Reaper coming through. He does say the main point of the draft is that Bailey is a free agent. Ding dong, hello. That's correct.
Yeah. Lacey Evans, too. I mean, I'm sure it's just a
There's a number
time away thing. Yeah, just being
well,
injured.
If you're injured, yeah, because Asuka wasn't drafted either, and people are like, what the fuck? But she's like been posting pictures with her arm in a fucking robot sling. It's not a normal sling. Like, she's going to come back as an android. Bionic Bailey is what we're getting when she comes back, and I'm excited. She's going to call her own shots. She's going to have a robot leg. She's going to be a goddamn Terminator.
And Autonomous Asuka, they can be a tag team.
There you go.
I'm here for
AB.
it. I'm here for it. Full circle.
Yep.
Full circle. Asuka
Time is a
Bailey,
flat circle. Boom.
Let's do it.
I've been looking into getting robot legs. It's a risky surgery, but I think it'll be worth it. What movie?
I support you.
movie?
You.
Dude, I want you to vlog the whole thing.
What movie is that from? I'm blanking.
Grandma's Boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. God damn it.
Yeah.
Your shit is weak. Your shit is weak, son. Pew, pew, pew.
High score. What does that mean?
I am a robot.
High score. Is that good?
Yeah.
Please sit on my face.
Here's the thing. You talked about Becky and Bianca going to Raw and what a bummer that is. And I wanted to say, I know you don't watch NXT, but here's a few names of the women. And by a few, I mean literally all of them. I'm just going to read them. The women who are going to be on SmackDown. In lieu of the Becky Bianca story, you are getting Aaliyah, Charlotte Flair. Let me go down slowly. I don't want to miss anybody. It didn't seem right. Yeah. Naomi, Natalya, Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi Blackheart. Actually, just said Shotzi. They dropped Blackheart. That's crazy. Toni Storm, B-Fab with Hit Row, and Xia Li. Between Xia Li, Toni Storm, Sasha Banks, Naomi, and Natalya, you'll be fine. There's going to be plenty of fantastic story and wrestling in there. And Shayna Baszler. I don't mean to knock
Love
her.
Shayna. Love Shayna.
The other women there are all solid. Aaliyah is very good and very underrated. Charlotte is very overrated, but people like. B-Fab has a little ways to go, but she's with a really fantastic team that's going to help carry her into a story that's going to be absolutely captivating. But Naomi and Natalya, they're veterans, and they're high-level veterans. Xia Li and Toni Storm? Go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry. I had a question. I literally took note. I'm taking notes, you guys. And I literally I had a question for you and Bishop specifically about Naomi. Now, I wanted to ask you because what they've been doing with her story is kind of, I kind of thought it was disrespectful, but I was wondering she was possibly recovering from an injury or something, and that's why they weren't letting her compete. But they were spin doctoring it to her kind of against the matchmaker. But I was really curious what you guys thought of that specific storyline with Naomi, and then to have her go to SmackDown, and you could tell old girl didn't want, like, she's like, oh, Naomi,
that's Daddy,
like
Daddy Sonya, yeah,
Sonya. Everybody feel the go. Hell yeah. We're Naomi fans over here. Over Chomp. I even made a note here. I put the notes of highlights on SmackDown, one of the notes I did right was Sonya says she wouldn't have drafted Naomi to SmackDown. That's weird because Sonya's on both shows, so it really doesn't matter. So it's a note I wrote. However, I love that you beard _ sports on Twitter feel that Naomi's being disrespected. It's fucking brilliant. I love it.
It worked.
That means it's working.
It's working.
It's working. You got work, son, which is good.
Well,
a lot of people don't like.
It's how you're supposed to feel.
But then I was like, oh, she has an injury or something.
No, she doesn't have an injury. She's being disrespected.
Yeah.
That's the point. The point is they're building that groundswell around Naomi that they already know is there. There's always rumblings about Naomi. She's a fan favorite. And she's fucking phenomenal. When you see her wrestle, you're going to understand. You're going to say, oh, I get this. But the disrespect is so you feel like she's being disrespected. So when she gets her comeuppance on someone else, you're going to be like, you're goddamn right, Naomi got that. What I think, and Bishop, you'll have to disagree because this is going to be a fantastic wrestling take and you don't really specialize in that. I think what they're doing is they're building a Sonya Deville return to the ring because she's been out of the ring ever since there was that terrible, horrible, real, personal thing that a crazy, I hate to use the term fan because I don't think a fan would ever cross a line, but a crazy, obsessive viewer of wrestling literally invaded her home with the intent to kidnap her with a bag of ropes and tapes and knives and shit like that. And it was right before SummerSlam. And it was right before her big match against Mandy Rose. And they were staying together because not only are they really good friends, but they're working on the match. And that's just the reality of the world that we as fans can go, that's bullshit, they got to keep kayfabe. But there's also a point where you go, okay, well, they also got to work the match out. So what do you want?
It was definitely the one time nobody fucking cared.
I heard a couple people say they shouldn't have been together. But I was also like, where are they supposed to do it?
During a pandemic.
It's a pandemic, and they live in Florida. What are they supposed to do? Because typically if I can just be honest and realistic without giving out any names, a lot of times they will meet in the hotel rooms because they can get between the floors without people seeing them before matches and work stuff out in hotels. But they're right. It's a pandemic. It's Florida. They were at home. What are you going to do? They have to work out this match. So regardless, there was an invasion. It was terrible. The guy was arrested. Everyone was safe, and that was fine. But it really shook a lot of the core.
This is a real thing? A real fan?
This is real news. This is real news. This wasn't even in the TV show. WWE never even talked about it because how are you supposed to deal with that? It was a real thing that happened. So when that happened, she did her match with Mandy. It was a decent match. But there was a lot fucking there that she wanted to deal with, and she took a step away and was like, I just need to figure out what I want and what I'm going to do. So she took a step away from the thing. But the match was a loser leaves town match. So stipulation was originally going to be hair versus hair. The thought was Sonya was going to have her head shaved. It did not happen. It became a loser leaves town match. Mandy won, so Sonya had to leave the WWE. With that in mind, she left the WWE because she didn't know if she was actually going to come back to the WWE. There was a lot to deal with there. Do I want to deal with this kind of quote fan base, right? But she makes a return as this corporate entity, as an official. So now, how do we get Sonya back in the ring that makes sense? Well, if Naomi is constantly in her face and says, I'm going to get what I want, do you feel that? And then whoosh, 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 kicks and stuff. Then you can get to a point where Naomi says, if you're not going to give me a match, then you get in the ring and you be the match, right? They already hinted at it a little bit. Sonya keeps disrespecting Naomi because we have to figure out a way not only to get Naomi time on TV, because Naomi doesn't miss. Every time she's on the mic, she sounds real. She sounds honest. She sounds genuine. Her delivery is, I think, exactly what Bianca was trying to strive for and got to. They're both, to me, on the same level on mics. You give them a mic and they're just talking, which I think is great. But how do we get Sonya back in the ring in a way that makes sense when she lost a Loser Leaves Town match? And how do we get Naomi on TV and back in the mix? It's win-win to me. Bishop, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what you were alluding to there is that we are going to get Sonya's head shaved by Naomi. Because I think you mentioned that before, possibly on episode 1. I love it, especially if it brings Naomi back. For something that you, again, alluded to when you laid out the rosters, I'm really worried about the SmackDown roster. And I know there's veterans there, but I don't trust their ability to tell multiple stories in the women's division because there's just not enough time. And who you have leading that division with Charlotte as the leader, we have seen time and time again that the person on the outcome of the Charlotte match that looks good is Charlotte, not the opponent. So yes. How are they going to build stars from the bottom up? Huge. I mean, during the whole Mei Ying saga, it broke my heart that they are gone. They are not an entity the way they used to be, but Xia Li's whole build into who she is, Sports Beard, check that shit out. Xia Li on NXT. She got broken down and rebuilt into an assassin, quite literally, but also figuratively, but literally. They did that in storytelling. Can that happen? Doing plugs? You distracted me.
Yeah, I was just plugging.
I don't know if we can get that much on SmackDown because they focus so much on bringing eyes in as opposed to look at this particular storyline. So I'm very, very nervous on how that's going to build.
The thing is Charlotte doesn't play with others, but Sasha's there. This roster's not going to get built by Charlotte, not at all. Charlotte's going to have no part in this. People are going to be talking to Sasha. Sasha's going to be building this roster.
And Natty and Naomi being there is going to help as well. That's all.
I'm talking bottom to the top. So you're talking about how the face is Charlotte, how she's the top. I'm saying the actual top is going to be Sasha. And then, I mean, Charlotte will be final boss, but the top, the final level is going to be Sasha. Just from, not even from a wrestling matches standpoint, from a literal, how do we help build people in the back conversation-wise, Sasha's going to be the person I think that people are going to in the locker room besides Natalya and Naomi. Naomi's going to be,
I get that.
Natalya, how are you getting started? How do you get in the middle? How do you get to the top? Those are your levels.
How is someone like Sportsbeard going to have that translate to him if those that are working with Sasha are now taking time off of Toni Storm and Aaliyah because it's Xia Li working with Sasha? So how do we get more on? While Naomi is going after Charlotte, you now have Sasha and, Toni Storm, Aaliyah, Xia Li to the side. Like, I'm nervous. Let's just say I'm nervous. Because even if let's say you take the belt off of Charlotte and you have Naomi and Toni Storm in a title feud, yes, please. You now have Charlotte in a spot on TV, Sasha trying to get who to where with how much time on TV. I thought bringing Charlotte over there was a bad move. There could have been more flexibility in actually building stars on all women's segments if you had someone else in that spot.
Charlotte's a non-factor. It doesn't matter where you put her, she's going to crush that roster. Her desire is to make sure that other people look bad, not that people look good. So the idea of drafting Charlotte to SmackDown versus Raw, it's the same conversation. Is she the best part for that roster? Personally, I don't think so, no matter what roster she's on. And I'm really trying not to be disrespectful at all because I do respect the work that she's put in. And I've met her, and she's an incredibly nice person. And in a sense, I'm a big fan of her as a person and want her to succeed at stuff. I'm just talking from a character standpoint. Beating Charlotte Flair or not doesn't seem to be as much of a factor as the character Charlotte Flair seems to believe. So I would say that I think of Charlotte Flair as a non-factor. She's going to be wherever she's going to be, and she's going to feud with whoever she's going to feud with. The real conversation and the real focus is on what's happening outside of that. And when I think you have Sasha Banks, Naomi, Natalya, make no bones about it, Toni Storm is a vet. She knows what she's doing. She just hasn't made it to that spot in WWE, but there's nothing stopping her from making it there, and she will.
So this was my point, though. It's the 2 hours of SmackDown, right? And when Becky is in the Charlotte spot, Bianca grows. And they still really didn't have anything except for the Naomi storyline grow as well. Yeah. So if you're going to put Charlotte in the spot that helped Bianca grow and only be able to do a Naomi, then no one else is going to grow. But
you don't think Liv was growing
side,
with Carmella?
That's what it was. Liv and Carmella. I'm sorry. I know I was blanking, and thank you for putting me in place there. Yes, it was. And Liv, a reason why you're like, why wasn't she drafted? A lot of people said that because she was built that well. So they can do those too. But the point was on Raw, when Charlotte was taking up that spot, I couldn't even tell you who the last person she wrestled was because I don't remember. While
it's because Charlotte is a black hole, not a light.
I know. And they're building Rhea and Nikki ASH, right, away from Charlotte. They're building and building and building. And they built Doudrop and got you to hate Eva Marie. Oh, Alexa. That's what it was, Alexa. And Alexa was more relevant every second she was away from Charlotte, helping build Doudrop and Eva Marie to get that time on TV. So what I'm saying is she's going to take her black hole from 3 hours to 2 hours. And now we're going to have an inability to make Toni Storm a star, especially if Toni Storm's the first challenger.
That's just the nature of Charlotte, though. Until Charlotte's not in the company, that's what she's going to be doing.
Which is why I'm worried about SmackDown.
I mean, she's just going to be a time killer. And the other thing, too, is it doesn't seem like she hits her marks. You know what I mean? Like, the way that she was off the rails on fucking Raw, cutting that promo and just trying to cut in on everybody, like, her and Drew McIntyre have a lot in fucking common.
Don't they?
And I think, to me, the biggest thing is that they talk when it's not needed. They can't appreciate or approve of others talking, no matter how important it is to the story. They think as long as they are the spotlight, then the story is fine, when neither one of them can carry the story and is absolutely dependent on the other person taking up space where they won't allow it. So I'll give you that there's a good chance that a few of these people just kind of like, here's the thing that happens to the draft every year that bothers me. We see names like Xia Li, Toni Storm, B-Fab, Naomi. We see Ridge Holland. We see Ricochet going to SmackDown. And we go, oh shit, this is going to be great for Ricochet. He's been stuck over there on Raw. He's not been able to do a lot 24/7. Lotta. This is going to be great. Ricochet's going to get a chance to shine. And then we don't see Ricochet until next draft. You know what I mean? That's what happened with Bianca. Remember when she was first drafted to Raw? We didn't see her for a year, dude, until she got drafted to SmackDown. Yep. Bianca Belair was shelved for a year. I'll give you it was pandemic, so a lot of things were fucking weird. But Bianca Belair was shelved for a year when she was drafted to Raw. That's also to say people are really impatient and say, hey, that's my guy, get him up there. Hey, Bianca's my one. Why isn't she not on TV? Well, give it time. Because when she gets on TV, she's going to make it count. Think of where she is now and where she was when she first got drafted from NXT to Raw. That time away from TV probably also helped just as much as the time on TV, you know?
Yep. Oh, and Shayna Baszler's there too, which I
Yep.
think she's the one to hold the title, hopefully, for a while there. I agree with Sportsbeard there. Shayna has a likeness to no one else when it comes to women's wrestling. She's very methodical, and I love that she's technical, but plays within wrestling rules to where if you incapacitate your opponent, let's say over twisting their arm, you may actually be DQ'd instead of it being a win. So I love that she plays within those rules.
Or breaking their elbow on the stairs. Like,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like, I don't know that I've seen that move before, and it's kind of, and you know, Shayna's one of those people, like, you believe that she can do that shit. Like, she will mess somebody up. I kind of love the amalgamation of the wrestling and MMA world. And that leads me to a question I wanted to ask both of you. What do you think that WWE does with Rousey? Is she coming back? Is that definitive?
I hope so. I don't know. I can't tell because she's not here. I know that's a cheap way of saying it, but honestly, there's so many people here to look at and invest in that if in an instance like SummerSlam where fucking Ronda comes out of nowhere, fucking 12 seconds, she goes 25 seconds on Becky Lynch, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, whatever, like that's more another reason why I don't look too far forward and fantasy book like a lot of people do, because the surprise of some shit like that happening would be fucking amazing. I absolutely loved Ronda in WWE. I thought she had her weaknesses like anyone else, but for as much as she shits on the product, she just talks like a real person, in my opinion. I thought she showed so much respect to the women when she actually wrestled. I thought she was just an amazing wrestler, so I would love for her to come back. If she chooses not to, fine. If she does, I'll wear my Ronda shirt again. I mean, I wear it anyway, but yeah, I have a Ronda shirt because I thought she was that badass and would love to see her again.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of her in MMA. Like, she's an incredible athlete. She, you know, Olympic judo, and you know, I watched her knock Betch Kohei out in like 6 seconds. That was a real fight. That's a real shoot right there. That was real shit. I mean, so like, I mean, she was an incredible fighter, and I didn't want to take anything away from her MMA career, but I thought WWE was a good move for her, and I'm rooting for. I want her to do well. I mean, anybody that speaks out about, I saw The Rock just did too, about mental health. Like, I'm a huge fan of that. Like, I'm a huge fan of, hey, I'm the most successful guy in the history of whatever, and shit ain't always easy, you know. So.
Yeah, I won't knock that. I think with Ronda, it's a little bit more of it's a little complicated, just because I think, for one, when she first came on, she signed a 3-year deal. She did step away after 1 year. She's had a baby. Now she seems like she's getting back into shape. She had several failed fights towards the end of her. I don't know if it's the end, but the end of what we've seen of her in MMA. I think that the unforgivingness of the fans, the toxicity of the fans, did take a toll on her. Although I think she had more support than she had when she was in UFC. I agree. Pull back if I could just peer in from the outside looking in just a little bit, I do believe that there was a lot more women in the locker room at a WWE show that were behind and supporting Ronda than there were in a UFC locker room. So when she took those losses, I know she took them very, very hard. But I think that there's also, it's one thing to go out and lose a fight that you were hoping to win. It's another thing to go out and cut a promo where you're telling the fans that you're a bad bitch and people need to respect you, and they boo and drown you out to the point where you cry, and someone's got to come out and get you. That's hard to.
Yeah.
We'll never know what that's like. We just won't.
I'll just say this. You know, Ronda kind of played the heel in UFC. I've been a pretty much devout UFC watcher since it came out. When I was jumping out of airplanes for the Army, when I was an airborne infantryman, when I first came in, like the first the first UFCs dropped on video. You couldn't even get them on pay-per-view. We would get them from the video store. That's how long ago that was. But I'll just say this. She did not the wrestling community and the MMA community are very much the same, where behind the scenes you're training against a lot of the people you're fighting against.
Yes.
It's a really small community, so it was really tight knit, and she didn't really ingratiate herself in that regard, and she didn't have to because she had that ability. And I think that it just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and that's sort of kind of how it went down for her. And look, people were really happy when Holly Holm had almost kicked her damn head off, because they kind of thought, well, she's a bit of a one-trick pony, because she would judo flip a girl, take her down, put her in an armbar. Now, she did knock out some people and stuff like that, but I think there were a lot of people that were like, hey, she's not really that well-rounded. And she didn't give a crap. She was going to do what she needed to do. There were some other things that happened behind the scenes that I will not talk about on this podcast, but if you guys are interested, I could tell you offline. But I'll just say this. I think that she sort of earned her reputation in UFC. And I think her having a baby and getting away, because I actually love her story and have a lot of respect for her. Her dad committed suicide. That's really personal to me. I've had family members that do that. I'm a big advocate for suicidal awareness and mental health, depression, stuff like that. I was always outspoken about my own battles as a member of the armed forces with my own soldiers, because I feel like it's real shit. It's not fake. Yeah. You know, people go through this. A great example. I just saw recent TMZ interview with the Heartbreak Kid, and I loved it because I heard he was such a piece of garbage back in the day because of his drugs and stuff. And he's like, look, he goes, all that stuff, the Heartbreak Kid, he goes, I had my heart breaking more than I ever broke anybody's hearts. That was all. And it was just because he's gotten his life now. He found God. He found Jesus. That's what he needed to put his life together. And I'm so happy for that guy. I was never a fan of him when he was a wrestler, right? And he was incredible. Like, his in-ring skills were so good, but it didn't allow me to see it because I hated the character so much. You know what I'm saying? Again, I was in my early 20s or whatever, but so I just feel like, you know, I think Ronda, she can come back. They could actually make her a baby face now because she's a mom. I think, you know, I feel like she had to come into the WWE as a heel, and it was probably extremely hard for her, like it is for anybody coming. Because look at, you know, you talked about Bayley, and I'm sure Becky Lynch, and I'm sure all these other women in wrestling. They started doing these regional shows, driving in shitbox cars, staying in the fucking worst hotels, motels that you could stay in. And, you know, so like, if you understand how it happens, how they get into the wrestling, you know, it's not like you just show up next week, you're on the biggest wrestling show in the frickin' world. So I'm assuming that a little bit of that from the fans was also like, oh, Ronda, you're going to be a UFC star and you're going to come over. But Ken Shamrock did it. Ken Shamrock did it like during the Attitude Era. And you hear Stone Cold and those guys talk about him. They like that guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. You know, I'll just say that. I really hope she does come back, and I hope she comes back, you know, in a big way, and that the fans open their arms to her and that she does well.
That's where I stand with it. I really want her to come back. I just don't know if she has the desire to win the fans back. Like, I think we all want the fans just to accept her, but there is a certain play where are the fans going to accept you, and are you going to win them over? I think there's probably a very valid part of her that says, fuck those fans. They booed me for no fucking reason.
And she doesn't need it either.
She doesn't need it.
Yeah, she doesn't need it either.
Yeah, so I think that there's a good chance she doesn't come back, to be honest. And I think if she doesn't come back, honestly, I think if that was the only run we ever see of Ronda, the only people to blame are the WWE fans.
1,000%.
They treated her in such a way that it was just unfair. I was not a huge, I didn't like Ronda's run at the time that I saw her live at Rumble. But the match she had at Rumble with Sasha Banks was fucking fantastic. The following night, she's cutting a promo at Raw. We're in the audience, and I'm booing a little bit because it's Ronda, and I'm gonna boo, and I want Becky and all that. But the crowd, the arena filled with boos so loud I couldn't even hear myself. And I remember turning to producer and being like, "This isn't fair." I was like, "This is a bit much." Like, I felt bad that we booed at all. Like, the crowd was not nice to her, and Bailey had to come out and save her ass, and did. Bailey comes out, cuts a promo, gets cheers. During the whole match, too, the crowd's chanting and singing to Bailey, and you could see Bailey turn and look at the crowd with, like, pleading eyes, like, "Guys, stop." Like,
Couldn't hear the promo at all.
couldn't hear it. She had a microphone and speakers in an arena. We couldn't hear her voice.
They had to dial it down on me.
Yeah, they dialed it down on the playback.
She needs to come back. She needs to come back and beat someone's ass that we hate, and that's gonna ingratiate her with the fans. And that's an easy thing for them to do.
Or you can cover her with a mic person, like, you know, was speculated early on. Does she go with Paul Heyman and do the Brock Lesnar thing? And that might be a way to, you know, maintain that badass bitch that she calls herself. But to your point, she actually came in as a babyface. Her first match was, you know, with Angle against Stephanie and Triple H, and to cheers. She had one of the most impressive opening matches to a career, and they slowly got into it. And I always appreciated it. I fucking can't stand live crowds. I go to shows. I enjoy myself. But I mean, even on NXT the other night, I know this isn't your NXT show, Mandy's starting to get the what chant. And I'm like, this is exactly why you don't need fans, because they try to hijack. I mean, NXT, this one specifically, I in my notes for when I record that show on the Terrible Wrestling Takes podcast, twtastepodcast.com for all platforms. When I go to record that, in my notes, it says the fucking fans try to hijack this show, because there's multiple times where you hear them banging on the new plexiglass that they got up, and they're doing the what chant, and they're trying to take over segments. And it's like, that's not what this is for. You are supposed to react to what is given to you beyond the person standing in front of you. Mandy didn't get a chance to deliver what she's saying. Now, she did do a good, if you say one more time, blah, 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 and she kind of got out of it. And once she pushed through it, they went back to it again. I'm like, you guys are just assholes. They do shit like that, and for Ronda, and they ruined it.
Well, don't you feel like, too, though, we live in a society where it's all about individuals now. Everybody's like, oh, it's about me, all about me, you know. So I feel like that just is like the societal changes that we have right now, where, you know, I'm sure it's affecting the wrestling fans, where, you know, 15 years ago you wouldn't have seen that probably, but, you know.
No, we had laser pointers back then.
Yeah, for sure. So.
If you go back and watch some of the old Attitude Era days, just some of the old Raws, like not even just like, just in general, if you go look at him, you'll see like an Undertaker promo, and he'll just be covered in red dots, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
air horns too. Air horns and laser pointers.
Extremely dangerous too, because you can actually blind somebody with those. I'm really surprised. I mean, I imagine they've cracked down on like tracking those idiots down. That's what it comes down to. So.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why they banned them off from the arenas. Real quick, I'm gonna hit the chat real fast. Fabtina said something I'm gonna bring up in a little bit. Grim Reaper says, "I love that Shayna is back to breaking people again. That breaking people's arms on the steps thing, Sportsbeard, is something she did when she first came up from the main roster. She did it." Okay. To a lack of fanfare, though. Fans didn't like it. They booed it and said she was boring. And then they put her in a comedy act with Nia Jax. That was so fucking brutal that people said, just go back to the other thing. We were wrong. Just give her the boring thing. It'll be better. And people are eating it up. They're 100% being like, oh, this is the Shayna we always wanted. I was like, well, it's the Shayna you first got. Yeah, the Shayna you always wanted is exactly the Shayna that you got and you booed. So...
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hers, and she was also an MMA fight. You know, she didn't have the success, obviously, that Ronda had, but she, you know, like I said, I'm a big fan of her as a, you know,
100%.
As a.
You'll like what's coming next. I'm pretty confident you'll like what's coming next.
Oh, yeah, what's coming up next? Grim Reaper does say, but then Ronda turned badass right after that promo when going into WrestleMania 35. 100%. And it's what they needed. It's what she needed. But I don't know if it's what she felt like she should have to go through, if I'm being honest. Because her character was not going to win the hearts of the fans over Becky Lynch because we'd all been invested in Becky Lynch for years. You don't know this, but before she became the man Sports Beard, there was a ton of cheers and chants for Becky when she was in the ring, very similar to the way that Daniel Bryan was kind of overlooked. Becky was like a man of the people. The fans were behind her a lot of the time and really upset when she would lose stuff. She also had a winning record. She didn't lose a lot, but she just wasn't presented often.
I'll be honest with you. From what I've seen from her, she seems like, to me, she would be a better babyface than a heel. It almost feels forced as a heel. What?
She was an incredible babyface. You're right.
Yeah. It just feels like she'd be better babyface.
That's what makes this so good, is that she's playing off of it. She's actually not doing anything as a heel. She's being herself, just as a dick. She's not really doing anything heel, you know?
The way I think of she's a babyface turned up so high that they're in their own head. And that's what makes her heel, is that she's so babyface that you're like, fuck off, dude. And it's like,
I won in 26 seconds. What do you want me to do? I won in 26 seconds.
Yeah. I'm fucking good. I won right away.
What do you mean? I'm so good. I won in 26 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, like
it's
you guys
not my
said,
fault I won in 26 seconds. It's her fault.
Yeah. But, I think, though, to hear it from other devout fans that say, like, her doing what she's doing is really helping Bianca, who I think is, probably the future of that division going forward, honestly. And it's not just because Bianca's so charismatic. I mean, she's a freaking athlete, man. Like, you can see her doing some incredible things in the ring. So,
dude, I mean, without trying to be weird about it, just look at her body. When she's wearing like shorts and a tank top, Bianca looks so fucking jacked. She looks like she could kick the turnpost right over. You know what I mean? Like, she's made of muscle. She looks like a badass. Yeah, she's not just like some good-looking woman. She looks like a fucking beastly athlete. You go, fuck. Yeah, she could probably run like a jaguar, and she could probably kick a door off of a fucking car, and she could probably punch right through my face. Like, that's how she looks. And I'm not saying none of that to be negative or weird. Like, and
that's a little bit different than the obstacle course she did with Bayley, though.
Well, yeah, Bayley won that for sure.
Right, but what if it was running like a jaguar, kicking a door off a car, and then punching somebody's face off? Who would win that one? Would Bayley still win?
Bayley's like, I mean, you can't really beat Bayley in much. Like, she's really she's a role model.
And it's an obstacle course. That's kind of her specialty.
I got one final question for you guys. So Ricochet is the 24/7 champ?
No, Reggie is.
Oh, Reggie. Oh, so the 24/7 has that's basically the hardcore championship. Yes. Okay. They don't have the hardcore anymore, but
right.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's
that's another thing. That's another. It's cinematic. That's another thing that when it was introduced, everyone laughed off the screen. It had a really good run of super entertaining stuff on TV, online, on the network, throughout pay-per-views, on ESPN, on Fox Sports. It had all these different moments. And it just became fun. And then it kind of died down a bit because, again, there's only so much time you can put on TV. And now, the pandemic, you really can't intermingle with a lot of people like they usually do during the pandemic. But now they're using it as a tool to show you that this guy who started as a sommelier can move in incredible ways like any other wrestler that they have. So akin to the hardcore title, 24/7, you have to defend it everywhere. If they walk through the Wrestling on the Rock studio,
Single Malt Studios,
in fact, can count somebody out. Except he always stops at one for some reason.
Me?
I haven't seen you count the two yet. I mean, this is episode 1.
Yeah, I'm really bad at counting.
Yeah, so that I guess the title can't change hands in the Single Malt studio, but it could because you are a ref. Yeah. So anyway, I can call it down. But I think they're doing a great job of having Reginald, be shown, or just Reggie now, right? Have Reggie be shown that he's one hell of an athlete.
It feels like a parkour lesson, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't hate it, but it's like, hey, this guy can do parkour. Watch, And then the guy that's chasing him looks like an actor from the 300. Is that the same guy?
Talking about Drake Maverick?
I don't know. The black guy looks like the dude that Leonidas kicks in the pit.
R-Truth?
This
Our
is
truth.
Sparta. He looks exactly like that guy. I don't know.
I mean, it might
Go
be
back
him.
and
I mean,
watch
R-Truth
that
is all over
scene
the
from-
place.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he did some acting.
He's done acting. He's fantastic. R-Truth's actually an incredible story. On the Peacock Network, I believe there's a Chronicle episode about R-Truth. It's definitely worth watching just to learn his story. But, yeah, I think it's a smart move to have the 24/7 title on Raw because when you go to a taping for Raw, they also have to tape main event. So you're sitting around for about 4.5 hours. There's a few segments that need to be a little bit goofy, a little silly, where someone can honestly get up and go get a new drink or some snacks or something in the concessions. And I think that without trying to undermine the 24/7 title, I think it's absolutely perfect there on Raw for that. And I think that sometimes us as fans at home who can get up whenever we want because the TV's close enough to the fridge that we can get a drink without having to miss the show, we forget that some of what we're seeing is only 2 hours into the show, but 4 hours into the audience, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that the fans could probably be a little more lenient to some regard with segments like that, personally. Was there anything on the draft specifically that stood out that you wanted to talk about, Bishop?
I was a little surprised that Bobby didn't go to SmackDown. And I really think now SmackDown is so loaded in the men's division. They're not going to miss for another year until another draft happens. They're just, I mean, when you bring in Sheamus to this tribal chief thing, if you just want to give that, just give it a month. There's a month. You're welcome. You know.
Wait a
and then
fucking
Drew
second.
McIntyre.
Hold on. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Go ahead.
You got Roman Reigns on SmackDown, the tribal chief, undefeated,
Yeah.
the tribal queef, as we say in the house.
That's terrible.
What? No. But you got the head of the table. You got this undefeated monster who's defeated John Cena amongst others. Dude, the SmackDown men's roster? Have you really looked at it, dude? You got Angel Garza, Ashanti the Adonis, Cesaro, Drew Gulak. Okay, you got McIntyre. So that's probably... We're going to probably see Drew McIntyre versus Roman for the next 8 months. Because after him, we have Eric from Viking Raiders. I'm assuming the other one's going to be down here somewhere. Humberto Carrillo. Isaiah Swerve Scott. Ivar. Yeah, there you go. So you got the Viking Raiders. They're going to be in the tag stuff. They're not even going singles towards Roman. They got no point. Jeff Hardy. The Usos. They're not going to. Jinder. Maybe. Probably not. Nakamura. Kofi. Maybe.
I have a hot
Mace?
take.
Huh.
Cesaro they could give him a title run. He's such a good wrestler.
He came in right after that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just did that after WrestleMania.
Oh, did they give Cesaro a title run?
Not
No,
a
they
run,
gave
but
him a shot.
They gave him a shot and a decent story, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that they could give him a shot, and I guess I missed it because he's so good in the ring.
I'll
man.
watch it
That
again.
guy he's
Yeah.
fucking incredible in the ring. Like, yeah.
What was that,
you know,
WrestleMania
Problem is, he
Backlash?
had to have Daniel Bryan cutting his promos for him.
Yeah.
So you had Mace, you have Madcap Moss, Mansoor, Mustafa Ali. Are you noticing anything about this so far, Bishop? Have you paid attention to the 205
Yeah, that
Live
I'm
crew
wrong.
I'm lifting off?
Yeah, I'm wrong.
Rick Boogs, Ricochet, Ridge Holland, maybe. He's a
Rick
badass.
Boogs can wrestle. Rick Boogs can wrestle, and Rick Boogs, I think he can do a promo. I like Rick Boogs. You're not a Rick Boogs fan?
You think Boogs is going to go toe-to-toe with Roman Reigns, and you're going to
I
fucking buy
think he
in.
could. I think he's strong enough to. He's a big dude, man. Like, that dude is a big dude. I like also King Nakamura. That whole, I think they got to keep those guys together for a while because of the chemistry or whatever that seems to be working pretty well. But like, I don't know, man. I think Rick Boogs is kind of like I could see that guy being a big star in that division, in that SmackDown division.
They can get there. Look, I see what you're saying. I definitely overshot that, but my point is that there's enough to tease us for a long period of time because Roman's got shit on lock. And I
Well,
think they can do it without McIntyre. I
You
just
got the
think-
Lesnar. Yeah, Lesnar and Mac. I think Lesnar's going to eat up a lot of that. I think Lesnar and Roman are the story they're going to tell. And I think that's going to cross the platforms, to be honest with you guys,
But
because
for
that's
how
the
long?
whole. Well, no, but Chris, that's the whole thing where they're doing the thing with Paul Heyman, where like Lesnar's the free agent and he can go fight on Raw and he can go fight on SmackDown. So Roman's gonna. I just really do think they're gonna do something with that for a while, and then probably Lesnar does a year and a half and probably calls it quits again.
Probably, but like, look, so Rich Holland's a maybe. He's a badass, but he's got to get there, right? And then after that, you have Roman, Sami Zayn, Shanky, Sheamus, Top Dollar, and Xavier Woods. Like, are you telling me any of these people are ready for Roman Reigns?
No.
Yeah, Sheamus.
Sheamus, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
I wanna see
Cesaro
it.
another run. Maybe Jinder another shot.
Yeah,
I don't see anyone else. Like Drew McIntyre is the
No.
only one, and I'm not fucking feeling that.
Yeah. No, I
You
hear
don't
I hear
like
you.
Drew McIntyre though. That's why you're not feeling it,
Yeah,
because you don't like him.
that's exactly yeah. That's why of course. I don't like him.
But
You're
it's
supposed to like him.
McIntyre.
but it's gonna be Drew McIntyre that fights against Roman outside of Lesnar. You know that's what's happening.
And it's going to be terrible.
Well,
It's
that's why a
Roman's
lot of
favorite
people are
number
watching
two.
AEW, brother. I don't know what to tell you.
Such a dick.
No, I'd love to see Sheamus. I'd love to see Nakamura. I do want to see. I want to see how McIntyre looks after going after Roman. Because the Survivor Series thing was a one-off, and it meant that Drew was definitively not Roman. So yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not loaded. I was wrong on that, but I still have a better feeling about SmackDown than I do Raw. I would like to see Lashley over there though.
Who?
Here's my problem with Lashley.
Lashley in
Oh,
the full
Lashley.
complement of the Hurt Business.
Lashley would have been fucking incredible on SmackDown.
Yeah, if you put Lashley in the Hurt Business over there, there's your next fucking 6 months.
Yeah.
Here's the difference between Big E and Roman. Big E is a big dude. Like, no doubt about it. But he's also just small enough to have a good-ass fucking fight with anybody. I'm not saying I want this. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But I'm saying if you even had Big E versus Xavier Woods, that's a fucking 5-star classic people will rewatch and study for years. There's just no way about it. Those two dudes would work too well together. But when you look at Big E, on what he's got on Raw, if you want to talk about world title pictures and possible stories to get through, if Big E's truly not a transitional champion and he is a branding champion, AJ Styles, fucking come on. Already, I'm on board. Tozawa, non-factor. Dawkins, flatulent. Apollo Crews for the world title. They had incredible matches over the Intercontinental Championship. Austin Theory, he could get there for sure. Bobby Lashley, obviously. Cedric Alexander, Chad Gable. Aziz is kind of an interesting story, but Damian Priest and Big E. You got Ziggler, Dominic Mysterio, Drake Maverick, non-factor. Edge and Big E, if you wanted to get there. Finn Balor and Big E. Gable Steveson, complicated, obviously. Jackson Riker, interesting. John Morrison and Karrion Kross, both. You got Keith Bearcat Lee, Kevin Owens, Montez Ford, maybe MVP, Omos, Otis, R-Truth, Randy Orton, Reggie, Rey Mysterio, Riddle, Robert Roode, Shelton Benjamin, T-Bar, The Miz, and Veer. There's a lot more opponents for Big E that could be believably good matches than I think are set
I
up
feel
for
like
Raw.
Raw is stacked, but I was gonna say, and I gotta go, Chris. It's my 15th wedding anniversary, man. So like,
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up right now.
But I just feel like they're missing the boat with the Demon and Roman. I feel like they could run that for another 6 months.
100%.
I will tell you though, I did find out who cut the rope. You want to
Go
know?
ahead. Go ahead.
It was a cameraman. They got video of a camera. So like it was meant to be like a divine intervention. But if you're not doing anything with that storyline, why would you do that? I don't understand. Like, just have Roman roll out of the freaking way. I don't know. Like, it was more dramatic to do it the way they did it, but it just to not have the Demon and Roman go at it again, you know, anytime soon. I just feel like they wasted a really awesome opportunity there. So
I feel like they wasted an opportunity there, but they also held on to an opportunity there. They can go another year or two before putting them back up together again, and you'll buy in. You'll buy in 100% because you go, you know what? It was that fucking rope broke. And was it the cameraman? Was it not? I don't know, but if
wasn't
it wasn't
the
for that
Demon
fucking rope,
undefeated though? Wasn't the Demon undefeated? I just feel like
he lost once before in NXT to Samoa Joe.
Oh, okay.
But that's it.
Okay.
So he goes on long runs.
I love
and he
that
loses to
character,
Samoans.
by the way. That is a badass character. That is very much shades of The Undertaker without the physique and stature and Kane and all that. And obviously, yes. I came up through all that. Those were incredible times.
100%.
But, I just, you know, we already had this conversation. So
100%. Grim Reaper in the chat says, don't hinder the Jinder. He makes a good point. Jinder Mahal could take the title at any given point. And if you want to hear more about terrible takes like that, Bishop from Terrible Wrestling Takes is constantly feeding you things about how legitimate Jinder Mahal is as a champion for being a former champion. Bishop, go ahead and plug your show real quick before we go ahead and have last call here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if I did that yet, but catch me twtakespodcast.com for all audio platforms, twtakespodcast.com/twts to get the dopest, fastest shipping, lowest price merch in the podcast game. Absolutely undisputed. You cannot deny that. But yeah, all audio platforms. I just went on Amazon Music today. I'm pretty excited about that. So check me out. Search TW Takes Podcast, Terrible Wrestling Takes. I'm all over the place. I think I have a loose invite to be here next week as well. So check me out.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Sports Beard, tell people right before you do those, Scar B coming through saying you're all champions, killing the guys. Cheers to Scar B. Thank you for coming through our YouTube chat. No, I don't know who that is.
That is the commander-in-chief, brother. That is the wife. That's Steph. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're going to get you out in time. I do want to say before I pitch it back over to you, happy anniversary to Sports Beard and Mrs. Beard. 15 years is incredible. I remember when she messaged me after you guys first started dating. And it was on lock from day one, man. You might not have known for the ride, but I knew right away because she knew right away, and nothing about knowing you or the two of you has taught me anything other than you definitely belong together. And I'm so glad you guys found each other. Sportsbeard, give a shout out to your wife and plug your YouTube and your Twitter real quick.
So Stephanie, incredible woman that I married, amazing. I got a brother in you because that's how I feel about you. You're like family. So happy for you and your sig other. Me and Steph couldn't stop talking about how happy we were for you. I love you, man. You know, you can call upon me anytime to be on this show. This was a weird circumstance today. I will never have to text you like, I got to get out, man. I got to get out. But I love you, brother. I'm at beard_sports on Twitter, or just Google the Sports Beard on the YouTube page. And I do live for special events every once in a while. I took the summer off as you do in Alaska, but I love you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. Bishop, so cool to meet you. I'm going to check out your stuff. And I don't think your takes are terrible. I really appreciated your insight.
Wait till you listen.
I'll let you guys debate who's terrible and who's not. I just want to learn and grow and have a good time in settings like this. This was a really cool time. Good luck to you and your family. Love you, brother. We'll see you.
Absolutely love you too. Bishop, always a pleasure to have you on here. The thing that Fab Tina mentioned earlier was that Tessa Blanchard appears to be coming back to wrestling through Women's of Wrestling. We are going to be talking about tomorrow with Miss Amanda Jane and potentially Crybaby Clump, because that's kind of our deal over there. Tomorrow night for a brand new episode 1, we're going to be talking about NXT, AEW, but primarily we're doing a watch along for MLW Fightland, where we can see Hammerstone versus Fatu in the wake of Bishop already having done so. We're going to try and pick out every time we see him. We'll have a drink every time we see a Bishop on screen. But until next time, until episode 1, for the first time again, guys, I'm at Ref Marsh. We're at WOTR the show. With me today, absolute special treat, at Beard_sports. You got Jeremiah, a really great guy there. You got at TW Takes Podcast Bishop, a crappy guy there with terrible takes. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow for a whole new episode 1 right here in the dive bar of the IWC. Guys, that's the last call.
Cheers.
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 Hey, producer lady here. Thanks for tuning in. Continue to support us or buy us a drink by following and putting the I in subscribe on Twitch. Or subscribe and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Cheers.
I would never have a drink with wrestling.